So let's talk about the future of the channel for a little. Okay, can you hear me? Hello? Sorry, I was just trying to set everything up. Technical issues. Okay, tell me if you can hear me, and I will be there in a second, but I think everything's okay-ish now. Oh, no it is not, because I think I broke the tightening here. Oh, sorry. Alright, let me just figure out how to sort it. Oh. Turn that down a bit. Let's see. Okay. Let's see if this is working now. Alright, can you hear me? I hope so. Let me see if everything's okay. Fucking deleting things now. To get random things open. I think it's all good now. So let me check the stream, because, oh god, yeah, I've got to fucking check my camera now. Boop, boop. Oh, tiny me. Big me, there we go. Alright, I need to adjust the camera a bit. All over again. A little higher on this one. Okay. Okay. This should be fairly relaxed, all things considered. I may need to adjust some stuff in a second, but I'll kind of just walk us into the stream first, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see. Oh god, did I need to... There might be one last thing I need to double check if I can do or not. So let me check that, shall I? Apologies, but yeah, I'm just trying to make sure I can throw the stream everywhere that it needs to go, because it sent me a funny... The link it sent me to the stream originally was a bit, little bit weird. So I'm going to try again and see if I can... There we go. Let me just delete one of these posts and post again. Okay, there we go. And I'll check this one as well. Post it. Let's see if that works now. Does that work? Just making sure there's a link. Yep, there we go. Sorry about that. Okay, I think I'm... Oh god, I opened the wrong thing. My god. Okay, anyway, back to the stream. Let me make sure. I think the connection this time is really much better than it was before. So hopefully that will help a bit. I mean, people will probably come on as we start up and sort of warm in. So that's fine. It's not quite... And I kind of did this a little bit last minute. But I was going to do this sort of thing anyway. So I thought I would show some people what we do here. Can't you wait here? Yeah, we're here. Right, I need to figure out if there's a good way of me to do this with the chat as well. How often do I use rotoscoping my animation? It really depends because I haven't done any like rotoscoping in a little while. It it can vary. You know, I've done a lot more frame animation stuff, and sometimes I'll use like loose rotoscoping or use like imagery as a guide, but I haven't done it in a while. Usually because I think it might be just the last time I think I did literally cut out images instead from photos. It has been a while though. I think some of it is a technical situation that like a lot of programs that I use don't like rotoscoping anymore. Well, they never have. It's a bit because it involves you like uploading a lot of frames. Like it will convert video into frames, and then you have this giant file full of frames. And a lot of programs, you know, depending what you use, they don't like that, so they get a bit funny when you do that process. So it can be a little bit difficult to work with unless you literally turn it into an image sequence, and then you have to import it to the program in such a way where it doesn't like it doesn't mess you around as much, which is a bit funky. You can kind of do that in Clip Studio Paint, but it is a bit of a faff. But even so, I don't think it really likes it very much. So it can be a little bit like temperamental. So it is easier to do things other ways. To be honest, I used to use it quite a bit though in some of the earlier stuff. And you know, if the time is right, I probably would use it again. It has to be like the right thing, right? The thing is, it can be quite time consuming in its own right. So if you're going to do animation, you've got to choose like even if it's fast drawing, it's still a lot of drawing. And usually my past, my wrist has not been the strongest. It's a bit better now, but yeah, you got to pick your battles with how many images you use. And I've done that over the years, moving between like I used to do some rotoscoping for the quotes, but then I'd be drawing like 100 frames for like the quote so that it had like a loop or something. And I was like, dude, there's a lot of fucking drawings just for like the quote animation. And you know, I got down to like 3 drawings, where it's like, you know, realistically, most you probably only need 3 just to repeat the sort of animation cycle. Maybe I throw in a blink as well. But you know, if I'm not going to throw in the mouths moving, I thought that was a bit much, just because and it's not lip sync, so it probably feels a bit weird. But if you're doing that, you don't need that many. I don't need 100 drawings. It's not necessary. Well, oh, the audio's low. I think something's happened with my mic. I think it's getting a bit funny. Let me check all the settings. Oh, fucking hell. Oh, this fucking camera stand. It drives me fucking insane. Oh my god. It's... Oh, okay. Oh, fine. Okay, you just fucked me. Fuck. Are you gonna focus on me? Oh, you gotta be kidding. I don't know how to fucking do this right now. I've gotta use that maybe? Aye. It does not like me moving around right now. Fucking hell. Maybe that. Maybe that. You get a button here at the back as well. Yeah, the stand is completely cooked, I think. I really would prefer not to have to get another one of these. I think it's the tightening mechanism. I think it's broken, so it just doesn't stay in place anymore. I don't even know where the tightening mechanism is. There's a little hole down here. I wonder if that's actually supposed to be the tightening thing, but there isn't in it. There's no thing holding it there anymore. But, I don't know what the fuck to do about it. It really doesn't like me moving about though. Not really sure what I can actually do about it, if I'm honest. It feels like it's just broken. The thing is, I don't have the manual for this thing anymore, so I don't actually know how the fuck it works. Oh, it drives me insane. I want to say that's right. Can I? Right. Oh, I'm not going to play too. I think I've got it on manual focus right now, have I? Or it was playing around with the buttons at the back here. Nah. I don't remember what buttons do what. Oh yeah. Okay. I think I might be a little bit louder now. Oh fuck! Now the camera's out of focus. Guys, nothing fucking goes right today, innit? Which one is it? Yeah, this thing is just. Oh, I hate it so much. I just had to buy a new stand, but I can't use this one. I have to just make do with this one for a bit because I don't have the other one on me. That one. Which of these buttons does it? Q, autofocus, under. Okay. I think it might be ignoring that anyway. Oh wait. Maybe that will do it. Is the chat even... The chat's not working. Oh, that's really fucking annoying. I had a chat here and it doesn't seem to be working at all. Nothing fucking working today. I'm losing my mind. Why is that not working? It's supposed to be on the top layer as well, but my chat doesn't seem to want to play. Yeah, this camera is fucking me about here. Honestly, driving me up the wall. I will probably not talk about Seraphim. There's not much to say, if I'm honest. Let me see. It was a nightmare. Yeah, literally, the nightmare starts right now with me just trying to sort this out. Why would it not focus? It must be I've changed the setting somewhere. I think I was trying to get rid of the thing that goes around you, but now it can't. It doesn't seem to want to focus on me. Is it off focusing mode? No, it might be that. Maybe I turn this on. Maybe that will help. Oh, see, if I do that, though, it brings this thing back. Yeah, can I get rid of it? Might be the Q button, is it? No, I thought there was. Oh, I can't remember what button it is now. Everything seemed like it was fine, and then it wasn't. So that's brilliant. That one? No. Fuck knows. Probably just do the manual again. Well, I hope that's focused. Maybe. I can't tell anymore. No, I can't see chat anymore. For fuck's sake. I'm losing the plot. Alright, well, that will have to do for now, and hopefully I won't move too much. Let's get up here. A bit here. A bit there. Now I need to figure out why the fuck this chat isn't working. Oh, and I'm out focusing for it. Alright, well, doesn't matter. Just not gonna be focused, whatever. Yeah, I switched the... Oh my god, the chat doesn't want to work now, and I need to figure out why it's done this to me. Jesus Christ, nothing wants to work at all. It's probably because I had everything set up in the old model. Now everything is not set up, and it is a little bit of a disaster. If I did this, and if I go like that, oh, that's the same login. And then if I click that, but now the chat doesn't appear anymore. It worked last time, and now it's not working. So like I am lost for words on that one. I had the chat on the screen and everything, and now it just doesn't want to work. Do I have to press refresh? Does that work? No. Oh, it did for a second. What the fuck was... See the shit? It comes up and then doesn't. Oh, I must have fucked something up. If I take the custom CC out for now, press OK, does it appear again? There we go. I guess something must be wrong with the custom CC. So, sorry everyone. I think that's the best I got. Oh, hey Foxmod, I'm having terrible technical issues right now. Apologies, everyone. Nothing wants to do anything correct. Try to get a bit closer to the camera. Move this a bit closer. Move this screen a bit. Fish fingers, don't even fucking start. My camera fell over and I lost focus, and I've been fucking around with it for the last thing. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not gonna spend the rest of the screen fucking around with the focus on this camera if it doesn't wanna doesn't want to go between. It won't autofocus without showing me that little target, or if it does, I don't know how to make it do it. And in unmanual focus, it just keeps fucking me. So I'm gonna just leave it as, if I'm blurry, I'm blurry. Sorry everyone, but this camera, I don't know how to fucking use it. Not in this way at least. So this is all new to me. And for some reason the chat transparency doesn't work either, so I've had to remove it back to here again, which that's always nice when nothing works. It seemed like it was working a second ago, or I thought it would, just because you couldn't really tell. But it looked like it was all going okay. But at this point, who gives a shit? Low, Tanny? I don't know, no. I mean, this time at least my stream is completely consistent. But my camera is having a hard time with focusing, and I'm moving around a lot, so I'm probably not helping it. And finding the focus point, probably about there. I guess I'm moving around too much for it to like deal with it. But yeah, the autofocus don't want to play with me right now. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to turn into a small version myself, so I don't know why I'm messing around with this so much. I've wasted my time, really. Let me see. Oh, okay. That's brilliant. I'm going to have to just do that. I unfortunately can't fix the transparency on this because I guess I tried to adjust the chat earlier in such a way because I wanted the screen to be transparent and the text to be larger, but instead it just stopped working entirely, and I had to just remove all the custom stuff, and I can't remember how to fucking fix it right now. I don't want to spend too much time on that. So basically, let's get on to what we were supposed to be doing today. Unfortunately, God, I hope this doesn't become a trend where like I spend the first 10-15 minutes of the stream being like, everything isn't working. Why is it not working? Because that would be fun. That would be a fun way to spend every stream. And get far too engaged in it because I get very particular about the technicals. Well, what are you going to do? Anyway, we are going to talk about research materials. I heard people do. I've never seen a research stream before, but I know people do them. And I was always wondering, how the fuck would you research while also streaming? That sounds like a strange thing to do, but I thought there might be something that's really tedious I need to do, which I can do with everyone while also showing them all the research I have so far. Which is going through my research document, and we're going to go through each of the different sources in it. And I'll work with everyone on that one. Now, I've got to figure out the best way of doing it. Bandicamp. Oh, no, I'm good. Did I see Kojima post a photo with Oshii at a restaurant? I haven't seen it, like, recently. I'm sure they have, because if you know anything about Oshii and Kojima, they've known each other for, like, a really long time. I'm pretty sure they met in the 90s. You can even find old interviews from, like, the Metal Gear era, like the first Metal Gear Solid era, where they're talking, because they tend to, like, come in and out. Oshii has he's got a Kojima Productions jacket. Very drippy, that he was wearing not so long ago. He's been at the studio. A lot of people are assuming that he's going to be in Death Stranding 2 as a cameo, considering he was such an avid player of the first game. And there's so many cameos in those games after all, it would probably make sense. They did a podcast a while ago, but they've also done other things. It was a 40th anniversary of Dalos. What do you call it? I guess it was like a I don't know what you can say. It was probably like a press meeting for Dalos. And instead of it being someone else who worked on the production, Kojima was just there. He has nothing to do with Dallas at all. He was just like there. So it was just like Oshii plus Kojima is here too, I guess. Kojima had nothing really, like he had no insight into the production of Dallas. He had some things as like a fan, but it was just really funny to see it's really funny to see him talk in that way, because he does mention, though, it was really interesting to see that he mentions in the talk there, he mentions that the first time, he basically kind of gives a breakdown of like how he found Oshii, and he said it was ironically, out of all the things I would have assumed Kojima would have found Mamoru Oshii on, it was Twilight Q. He like must have rented the first or second tape for Twilight Q, and he found it, was like, whoa, this is wacky. And then from there, he started becoming a bit of a fan on there. So there's definitely that, which I don't know. I find that very peculiar. For people in the chat, I don't know if they know this, but Oshii has also created a couple of games in his time. I think this was during the 80s or 90s. I don't know too much about them because I think most of the sources are in Japanese. But he created these sort of like Japanese-only little video games during that period. He was he's been like an avid game player for like a really long time. Most noticeably, he's a really big fan of wizardry, which comes up a lot in his different adaptations, different movies and things he's made over the years. Wizardry is like a big one for him. Even recently, like last summer. Oh, yeah, I guess last summer, he did an interview with the Wizardry, one of the original developers for Wizardry. Hey, that might be interesting. Right now, I can't think of the project until I'm past the current one, but I may have things to ask. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure how I'm going to do Twilight Q yet. I feel Twilight Q may get put with Patlabor, because Twilight Q is also Headgear, and I think the story of Headgear is synonymous with the story of Patlabor. So it's entirely possible in my mind that like it would make the most sense to put Twilight Q as the opening chapter of the Patlabor video, which will be pretty long and extensive. We'll probably go through everything, right? So I feel like if I'm going to look at that, but I don't really know how in-depth I'll get with it. Probably not too much. I'll see what there is there, but maybe there'll be some interesting insight to ask about. I'll have to think about it at the time. Right now I've got to focus on Angel's Egg, which I feel like most of the research for that one is now done. And I'm gonna try something now. Hopefully the stream doesn't break now. I'm gonna try this, and hopefully this works. It could just eat shit right now because I've had no luck this stream, but we're about to find out. One of these things, I think, is the browser that I need. Was it? No, it's web capture. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to do Patlabor. I think that'll be a really interesting one to do. It will probably take a while though. I had to figure out when I want to do it as well. Because there's a new series coming out, but I don't think that's until a long time from now. I think it's 2026, isn't it? So I don't think I need to be in any rush. Realistically, the video will come out next year. So if Patlabor isn't coming out, the new series isn't coming out next year, then I don't really have to care about it too much. Well, not that I don't have to care, I can just kind of be laissez-faire about it. I'm not sure if I'm going to do like Panzerkopf and all that stuff, like the Cerberus, Cerberus sort of franchise first, or Patlabor, because maybe Cerberus, because there's less things to talk about. Maybe that makes sense to do first, because they kind of both happen around the same time. Yeah, I know the fellow you're talking. I think I've actually talked to that fellow before. Is he the director? Oh god, actually no. I think I'm mixing him up. Oh, that's embarrassing. No, I talked to the person who did The Cat Returns. He's Ocean Waves, right? They're two different people. I think I talked to Morita. I think it's Morita. I talked to him, but I have not talked to the Ocean Waves guy. Though I think he's really interesting. His stuff on Ranma 1/2, that was really, I think his section, that's really good. And I like Ocean Waves too. He also directed the movie, I'm pretty sure, of Mason Ikoku? I always forget if it's Ikuko or Ikoku. I feel like it's Ikoku. I know he directed the movie of that, which is fine and good. The thing about that movie is I'm really distracted by the character designs. Because they're so different from the rest of the show that, like, I think the animation is usually quite good, and it's fine. It's a fine little movie, fine little sort of, I guess, addendum to the series. But yeah, that everything looks different is distracting to me. But he seems cool. So Kara, I think first maybe we'll be talking about this in the video coming up. There is no way ever that Oshii and people of Ghibli, especially Takahata, would ever work together, because we tried it. We tried it once before, and it didn't go well. That was during the Anchor years, which is just after Angel's Egg. That shit did not work at all. These old men, even I guess when they were young, they're just too argumentative to like get anything done. They are just too opinionated and too of their own way that it becomes very difficult for anything to actually happen. And you even hear this with, like, you know, Miyazaki's produced stuff from Takahata, and Takahata's produced some stuff from Miyazaki. Usually it involves them staying away from each other. And, like, there's kind of a sort of, like, what they do usually involves not actually being able to stop each other from doing what they're going to do, but it usually more to do on all the other technical production side of things. But, like, these two are basically like wrecking balls for their production. So, like, there's no stopping them. It would only cause arguments. So it doesn't really work as a collaboration per se. More just some kind of treaty of ceasefire, maybe. The Karatans guy, I just talked to him on Twitter once. I don't think we had it wasn't a very long conversation, but I think I was just asking him about what he was doing of late. That I like, I was just saying I liked Karatans. I think he said at the time that he was working on something, which I think did end up being, I think it was the Ni Kune movie. I think he was like assistant director on that. I think that's what he was doing, but he couldn't say at the time. But I think that's what it ended up being. He was working on something though, because he hadn't done a production for a while, I don't think, or he hadn't been a director on a production in a little bit. I had to say it Carrot, but I've seen some of the images from what they're apparently giving to those cinemas apparently, and it looks terrible. It doesn't. I don't know. Maybe the cinema one is different, but the images they've released is just like AI upscale garbage. I hope the Interstellar version they have in the cinemas does not look like that, because that would be a travesty. I think it's a hard one because Interstellar was like, it's a tape. It's definitely tape, digital tape from like the early 2000s. So I'm not sure what quality the tape is currently in or how they're restoring it. But God knows. Anyway, sorry, I was supposed to be doing a thing here. So let me just catch up what we're saying. I don't know if he does more. Maybe. It depends how you want to put it. I was going to try and, window capture. I got to make sure everything is correct right now. I got to bring the camera up. Mini-me. Window capture. Oh, okay. Is that not working? Oh, wow. Oh, okay. Wow, my window caption stopped working. That's brilliant. That's really amazing. I'm so glad when everything stops working. That's just great. For whatever reason, yeah, my window capture has stopped working. So maybe I can get it if I do some... Oh, it's working now, is it? Okay, it works now. Brilliant. Right. So let's have a look through this document, and let me see what we can do from here. Yeah, me too. Did I make an Angel's Egg video before, or was it a stream? No, I don't think I've ever talked about Angel's Egg I don't think I've ever talked about it. I think I might have mentioned it once in a anime movies video, the top 100 one. I might have mentioned it there. So let me try and figure out how I'm actually going to look at this stuff, and I probably have to just go here and have a look through. So I might have to jump between. I'm not in the best place to do this. So the way this is, way I would like to do this today. Oh god, it's fucking took me this so long to get this sorted. Apologies, everyone. All right, so the way I'd like to do this is I'm going to go through this Angel's Egg document here, and what I would like to do is order my sources when I get to them. These first ones are not actually numbered stuff. This is just the stuff up at the top here is really just for me. These are like quotes from earlier in the document, which will probably be used in the video in different places. So I need to make sure if I'm using them or not. But I believe the first area I'm pretty much just going to go through the list, and I'll talk for some of these sources and show some of the stuff, and talk about them, and we'll have a little fun seeing these different scenarios. So, are we good with that? Is everyone fine with what we're doing here? I'm sure. Well, not like I'm going to stop me, is it? Can people see the cursor? I wonder if I can. I wonder if I can just zoom in for a second, because yeah, maybe I need to like go like 150. Yeah, maybe I need to go to like 150. Maybe that'd be better for the stream. Oh, okay, now it just cut off on the crutch. Never mind. For fuck's sake. Wow. I think I actually need maybe 125. Can I do 125 without my chat destroying it? Maybe just about. Oh, that's gonna be messy. Maybe I can do somewhere between those two. Fish Fingers, Barefoot again came up before Grave for the Fireflies by about 5 years. So I don't know if that isn't. I don't. I don't know how it's a successor. I'm not sure what you mean by that. I will be talking about In the Aftermath. In fact, we've got some. I got some tea for everyone. Maybe I'll start with this. This is where we're going to start with, right? So it hasn't been in the English sphere. No one has really been talking about the reason Angel's Egg has not been released for 40 years. I don't even know. Can you see the cursor? I don't even know if there's a cursor on screen. I mean, I can see my cursor on the OBS, but I don't know. Anyway, I'll start with this one because this is an interesting one. It's somewhere in the document, but I'll do it here. Let's begin with the saucy stuff. So, Angel's Egg has not been released in the West officially ever until very recently, but that's not technically out yet. So the reason this happened, I think a lot of people don't know the reason. I've only seen it mentioned in one Japanese book so far. I didn't even know it was in the book. I think I found it by happenstance. I can't even remember. Was that? Yeah, I feel like I was basically searching up keywords. And I think at some point I found the discussion where they were talking about rights. So Oshii has a section in this book, I think it's called Fight, or it might be on the document somewhere. I think it's called like Fight to Win or something like that. So he has these two books called Fight to Win. There's Fight to Win Part 1 and Fight to Win Part 2. In Part 2, Oshii basically runs down what happened with the rights, and he talks about In the Aftermath. So he mentions, I believe it's also here, there's other places he mentions it. Would it be here? It might be one of his quotes here somewhere. But I think it was in an interview with Forbes. I think it was that. So he mentioned somewhere that like a friend of his told him only after seeing it at like a film festival that someone had used Angel's Eggs footage in a movie, and he had no idea about it. Now, the thing about that's important is Oshii owns the rights to Angel's Egg as a concept. So the rights of Angel's Egg is like he has the copyright with Amano and I think Takuma Shoten. So they have like shared things, but they have a stake in it. Like they do have some ownership in it. So what happened, as far as I understand it, is that Hideo Agata, who is he used to be like the head editor, I believe, on Animage. He had sold the rights. He had sold the rights to Angel's Egg to Roger Corman. He did this without telling Amano or Oshii, because he sold like the entire international rights to them, like the whole deal. In such a way where, like, I guess Corman just owned those rights now. That's the way he kind of describes it, it seems. I don't think there was even a timer on it. It wasn't even like some sort of... It was like he just had it. Which Ogata was not allowed to do. He could not do that without consulting the other people who own the rights. He doesn't... He can't do that, but he did it. As far as I know, there is zero There are 0 American releases. There is, as far as I understand it, there has never been an American release of Angel's Egg. And currently, there may be one next year, but there has never been. And if there was, it was a bootleg. So Ogata just sold the rights off, and then Corman must have gave it to, I believe they were an Australian director or something, and they used it as like B-roll for a movie they were making. I had assumed in the past that maybe this movie had some kind of rights holding situation where like the people who made the movie now own those rights, and that means that it's really difficult to release it. Like they own the international rights, and they've just held it, but that's not actually what happened. Yeah. Yeah, it used the Angel's Eggs footage, and they probably got it for cheap because, to put it bluntly, Angel's Egg was a catastrophe. Not only critically, but also commercially. That thing did not sell for shit. The limited screenings it had went awfully, and critically, it was destroyed in Japan. They fucking hated it. The best reviews I've seen of this thing, there's a couple people who liked it, but the best reviews I can see, like on a broader scale, is that it was ranked number 18 in the top anime of 1985 in Animage's magazine. Now, Animage's magazine, that might sound okay, but you have to consider Animage is owned by Takuma Shoten, who made Angel's Egg. So Takuma Shoten had been using the happenstance that they own Angel's Egg and that they have been promoting Angel's Egg in basically every issue of that magazine for months. They have been exploding the coverage on it in that magazine. It's like basically every month there's something on it. And for something that is basically being manufactured to be popular in your magazine and to like everyone in the magazine to know what it is and probably to be the target demographic and or at least seen it in some way at some point, for it to end up at 18, it's the year before, something similar had happened with, even though they don't own the rights, but Suzuki, who became, the head producer at Ghibli, he had been, like, heavily marketing Beautiful Dreamer. Urusei Yatsura's Beautiful Dreamer. So Takuma Shoten had done, through the Animage magazine, a ton of coverage of that. And that became the 3rd highest rated movie in 1984. Only, I think, topped by probably Nausicaa, and I'm assuming Macross. Macross, Do You Believe in Love? So only those two. So like, it did very well, sold very well on video. So Angel's Egg had neither of these things. Most of the comments were not positive on it. They generally called it up its own assness. So Takuma Shoten probably saw it as a complete dud that was worthless. So which is probably why they sold it for such a cheap price. Because like, well, no one's ever going to release this again. No one's going to see this shit ever again. Like this shit's going to go in the bin. So that's probably why they gave it to Roger Corman for a pretty good deal. Because like, well, we're never getting any money out of this thing anyway. So if you want that for this amount of money, well, maybe we'll make a bit of money back on that, and boom, done. It's the Macross movie. I mean, technically, well, funny enough, I mean, Nausicaa was also owned by Takuma Shoten, so I wouldn't be surprised if at the same time as the Warrior Win shit happened, that they also, because they sold the rights to Nausicaa internationally to Roger Corman as well. So I don't know if that was like a dual package there, where it was like, here, you can have Nausicaa, and you can have Angel's Egg for this price, take them away. Go for it. Though, obviously, with Nausicaa, because it's a much higher esteemed package, I'm pretty sure that was with the people's probably permission. Well, I don't actually think it even had permission. I think it happened without them. I think there was some skullduggery there, but they kept the rights. Obviously, Studio Ghibli currently owns the rights of Nausicaa, the movie, internationally, and they have... I think that, I assume maybe like after 10 years, the rights ran out. So this was like a 10-year contract or something, I assume. Maybe Angel's Egg was the same. But they were also annoyed by that. But I think it was like a 10-year contract. So maybe Angel's Egg was also a 10-year contract. I think in the aftermath, it's not even Angel's Egg. It's effectively just uses clips from Angel's Egg in a live-action movie. I've never seen it myself, but I get the impression that it's basically completely transformative. And like the clips are just used with in a very different context entirely. I mean, Roger Corman owned the rights, but he's not a dubbing company, so they probably sent the dubbing to someone else. So Corman has the rights. He probably hires then a random dubbing company, and then they deal with all that shit. Corman was doing things cheap and fast, so he probably just boom, 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 right? You just hire randomers, and then they do the work. That's just the way. So, anyway, where were we? So if we can assume here that Roger Corman had those rights for like maybe 10 years. He had like this 10-year contract or whatever it was, and he just had those rights. Do we know how long it takes for a movie to enter the public domain? Well, if it's generally the same, I think, as it's probably going to be the same as most international laws, which means that the creator has to be dead for like 70 years before it becomes public domain. So Oshii's not dead yet, so I think we've got a long way before Angel's Egg is ever public domain. Oshii has to die first, and then you have to wait it out. Usually somewhere between 50 to 70 years. So there's no way of getting it that way. But what effectively happened then is Oshii had legal counsel to some degree, in that like it was like what effectively Takuma Shoten had done was a violation of his copyright. But he never ended up suing them, I don't think, because effectively there was no point, in his mind at least, that there was no point of doing it, because even if he sues Takuma Shoten, he can't get his rights back because they've already been sold. So like he couldn't retrieve them. And what also happened was Roger Corman ended up selling the rights to someone else. And then that person ended up selling the rights to someone else. And then that person ended up selling those rights to someone else. And then that person ended up selling the rights to someone else. And what effectively happened was that it had jumped between so many people that nobody knew who owned the international rights to Angel's Egg anymore. And this was a problem for 40 years. For 40 years, nobody had a fucking clue who owned the international rights. So what happens is, like, random companies abroad approach Oshii and go, man, we would like to do like a limited release of Angel's Egg or something like that, or we would like to do a video release for Angel's Egg. I don't know, especially in France. In 1995, France had a showing. It had this showing, I think it was at a film festival or something, but they had a showing of Angel's Egg, like an official one, in 95. And everyone who was at that showing loved it. They fucking loved that shit. And I think from there, Angel's Egg had, it's especially because in the context, Amano is really popular in France. His work, his output, obviously in like Final Fantasy or just his illustration work, he's really big in France, and he spends a lot of time in France. So like, as soon as it's like, oh, this is a movie where he did all the designs, of course they're really interested in it. So there has been, like, over the years, a lot of interest in France about Angel's Egg. But again, they can't get the rights. Or so we thought. What effectively seems to have happened is there's gonna be plushies. That would be crazy. I would love to get a little the little girl plushie from Angel's Egg. I think that would be great, actually. So basically what had happened was there was such a long period of time when nobody knew who the rights were. There's some talk in the book where I think Oshii was basically like, well, you could just do it like unofficially because we don't know who owns the rights are, and they haven't used them in so long that like we can assume they don't even know they have them. So I mean, in theory, you could just like fire something out and just see what happens. And I've always wondered about this because I don't know how it works. I don't know if anyone in the chat knows how this works, but does anyone know how like limited release showings in like independent theaters work? Because sometimes a theater will just show a movie and they'll put it on a screen. They'll do it for like a night or two, and it'll be like an old movie. Do they need to like procure some sort of agreement with the original rights holders to do that? Is there some kind of like pro bono situation where they can just kind of throw some money at them, or how does that work? How do they get the approval? Because I know several different theaters in the past. I think some in England even, but I saw one in Australia. They just show Angel's Egg, and on like a fairly regular basis. Like every couple of months, they just show it, and I'm like, well, how the fuck are you doing that? That you can't have the international rights. Nobody at this current point, when I'm showing it, when I'm seeing it, I don't think anyone even has like the option to do that currently at that point, or it was just happening basically. So like, were they just doing it? Was that just a pirate showing? Are they just like, did they just have the Japanese Blu-ray? And they're just like, fuck it. Well, let's see what happens. Because it's like one showing, no one's really going to fucking pay attention. It's like, oh, one showing in a country far away and nothing's going to happen. It's like a local showing. I don't know if that's, I don't know about that one. Maybe, I mean, to be fair, the rights. So the way the story goes, this year, a French company. Notice I'm saying French here because we need to emphasize this. A French company who also has connections. I believe they've merged with Wild Bunch. Wild Bunch is they're a French film sort of like boutique kind of place, but they are probably most well known for releasing all of Ghibli's work in France. They also released the Red Turtle. They produced and released the Red Turtle. So them and their joint partner found the international rights to Angel's Egg. I don't know if it ended up in France. I don't know what they did. I don't know if they hired a fucking private investigator or something, but they went out of their way and they found them. So, like, because I was saying, nobody knew where this was for like 40 years. No one knew that. I was always assuming, like, is the number just way too high? Like, was the number to get those rights just way too... No, that wasn't the case. It had just been somewhere random. I don't know if the person died. I don't know what happened in situations where, like, the original rights holder, they died and then the rights went up to, like, sell or something. But these people in France, they found it. Maybe they were in France already. Maybe the rights had somehow... But, I mean, it would be weird to me that they'd be in France and no one had done anything with them. Because, again, it would be an easy sell in France. So, wherever it was, they found those rights in the beginning of 2024. And now they have sold those international rights around in that, like... Usually what happens, right, is they have the international rights entirety. So... They are releasing a 4K cut. So they're going to hit the film reel in, which is pretty grainy in the current form we've seen it. They're going to do a 4K restoration. I think there is a 4K restoration in Japan in about 2022. I think they did one. I don't know what they've done with it. I don't know if it's been released. I don't think there's been a recent release. There's been a version on Amazon, which, funny enough, there's an interview with Oshii recently in 2022 where they're like, so we just heard that Angel's Egg ended up on Amazon Prime. And Oshii is like, he has PTSD because he's like, wait, what? Nobody told me this. And he was like losing. He was like, they need to tell me when this stuff happens. And I think he's still burnt about the international rights. But he's just like, you can't just put it on Amazon Prime without telling me or asking me. Like, what? I own the rights. You can't do that. I have to be in the loop. Because obviously he's also expecting a paycheck. So that happened. So I guess nothing really has changed there. Well, I don't know, maybe there was some deal there. But anyway, now France owns those rights. They've sold them to different places around the world. I know in America, G-Kids has taken them from the French. The French went to G-Kids, and obviously this is usually how it goes, right? So when you do like distribution in different areas, you have the person who has all the rights, and they'll go to different places, and then they'll sell them to the people in those markets. So France goes to America, and G-Kids is like, well, yeah, we want that shit. And they get it. And I guess everyone comes out of the conclusion now, oh, G-Kids did it. Like, no, G-Kids didn't do shit. They just walked up and were like, more, please. I don't know who's got it in England. I don't know if it's going to get it in England. I hope it does. It basically has to be all the anime. No one else can really do it. It just has to be all the anime. They're the only person who could pick it up, unless literally someone like Studio Canal does it, which is ironic because Studio Canal is like the English name for Wild Bunch. So maybe through Studio Canal, which have released a lot of Ghibli stuff in England, they might release Angel's Egg too. But when it comes to like a theatrical showing, it probably would have to be all the anime. So that's where we are right now. And at some point, God knows how that's going to work in different countries, but America's going to get that limited release. They're going to get a Blu-ray. Probably going to get 4K Blu-ray. So I guess Angel Eggs fan, they're eating good. 40 years in the making. 40 years in the making. Yeah, like I said, G-Kids already done it, so Discotek cannot. Yeah, someone mentioned about Dragon's Quest. Well, Dragon Quest has a very particular... I don't know if it's worth getting into, but like Dragon Quest had a real struggle internationally because of how it was very hard for it to break through in a lot of these markets. For like multiple different reasons, right? You know, in America, there was a problem with that. Like, you had Dragon Warrior, you had the copyright for the Dragon Quest name. I believe was in a tabletop game for a time. They had Dragon Warrior. They put a lot of stock in Dragon Warrior, but Dragon Warrior didn't sell very well, so Nintendo kind of gave off on Dragon Warrior for a long time. So you got very sporadic releases of Dragon Quest games, but were never promoted. So you get stuff like, you know, Dragon Quest 7, which got very little fanfare. And it was also kind of like fighting against the times. It was basically a 2D game with 3D backgrounds. It came out in the year 2000. It's like you lost, you know, at that point, Final Fantasy had kind of broken through several years before with like 7. And like this is like antique in comparison. the thing that 7 had going for it at the time was that it had like massive amounts of words and scripting and stuff like that, very difficult to translate. But that's not really, I don't know if anyone who's not invested in Dragon Quest is really going to be like, do I care? I mean, it is until 8 that you really start seeing any like actual attempt to push that stuff in the West, really, like when we come into like English speaking countries at least. I'm sure it's entirely possible that maybe like Spain or Italy like really like Dragon Quest. But yes, it's done a lot better recently. In England, I know that during the DS era, there was a particular like very specialized pushes for Dragon Quest, because obviously Dragon Quest is set with like a very English fantasy tone. So there was like custom ads made in England specifically with different kind of personalities, like English personalities, to try and push those campaigns to the English market, which I think were somewhat successful with the DS game, Dragon Quest 9. Not sure how it went after that though. Obviously Dragon Quest 10 was not released in, I think, any of Europe or America. I don't think it's been released in America. You know what? With how G-Kids, because of how G-Kids are, I would not be surprised if they did a dub at some point, but it probably would just be for the home release. I imagine when they do the showings, it will probably just be English subtitle. But the thing with Angel's Egg is it has like 10 lines of dialogue anyway. So, like, to be fair, to do an English dub, probably it can't be that bad, right? It's like 10, 15 lines of dialogue. They haven't got much to do. There's not much for them to do. So, I mean, it would probably be an easy sell for them to do it. I don't know if it'll end up in the theaters though. Yes, someone's mentioned it. The Nausicaa manga is right here, but it's on the top of my tablet. That's where I keep it. I keep it safe. My Nausicaa manga is safe under the tablet. That's where it is. Yeah, I don't know how the rights went. But yeah, I know in Italy, Lupin is pretty popular. Ironically, there's some story we might get into here. I guess I should actually get into the document proper now. My God. This Mario, this will be... Fuck, I just said that like it's fucking Mario Brothers. This live stream will stay up on the second channel. Generally, I'm moving most of my live streaming to the second channel because I think it's better to probably have its own area for it to grow and stay instead of just like unlisting it. So it will stay up. I'm trying to like build the channel up a little bit, but it'll probably take some time. But it's alright. Did I say Angel's Egg 2? There is a story about Angel's Egg 2, but there is no Angel's Egg 2. No. See, there is a story in 1987. Oshii joked. So I don't know how serious you can take him on this one, because he likes to lie a lot. But he mentioned in a passing comment that he was like, I have an idea for Angel's Egg 2, but no one will let me make it. I mean, at that time, no one was liking any shit. Like, no one was fucking greenlighting anything he was doing in 1987. They were all like, pass. Nah, mate. None of his original ideas were going fucking anywhere. So, he mentioned that back then. How would you say? He mentioned it. I haven't heard him say anything about it since. And realistically, if that is the case, I don't think anyone is funding Angel's Egg 2. And I think this will be a message in the video that like Angel's Egg is like a very strange anomaly, even in its time period, very specifically because of a mixture of factors. And I would say one of the main ones is going to be nepotism. Oshii was just in a very lucky spot in his life. Not only does he have like the backing of people in Takuma Shoten, he got in good with the head of Takuma Shoten, who's like a very interesting figure historically. He had a lot of ties to corrupt politicians, and he was a real character. But what was most well known about the guy is that they kind of ran Takuma Shoten like shit, is one thing. Oshii implies that Takuma Shoten had a background in like the Yakuza, like underground crime. That like originally that Takuma Shoten has some weird like very dodgy beginnings when it comes to that, and some dodgy connections. But the one thing you generally will hear about Takuma Shoten, and it's the reason I believe that Miyazaki stayed with them for so long as well, is that Takuma Shoten, the head of Takuma Shoten, he was a big guy for respecting directors and artists. Like he had this like he had a really he had this really particular outlook. Where like when he talked to somebody who was like a creator type, he would treat them with some form of respect. Like he wasn't a money guy in that way. Like he would sometimes make decisions where he was like, no, I believe in this. Like he was really for those kind of things. Like when there was a film director or someone like that, and even that, and the anime people they weren't treated with the same like reverence usually as film directors. But he had this sort of feeling about them where like, it's like you're a craftsman, you're a craftsman. That's kind of how we'd look at it. But if he liked you, he'd fucking sort you out. He'd get you funding, even if he thinks like the shit ain't gonna do well. He would actually get you that funding, and that is kind of what Ghibli was kind of relying on, I think, to some degree. That like when they were with Takuma Shoten, a lot of that time, I think they tried to stay with the company basically until the point he died. Because after he died, they were like, nah, fuck this. That's what was Miyazaki's picture. Because there's a lot of nightmares behind the scenes when it comes to Takuma Shoten being really irresponsible with money. But like they would at least give them a platform to do the things they were going to do within reason. Within the producing model, at least. And that's the thing with Angel's Egg, that, like, Oshii was able to talk to the head of Takuma Shoten, Mr. Shoten himself, and he was kind of like... Mr. Takuma. His name was Takuma. And he was like, yeah, fuck it, let's do this. Things are too, like, samey right now. That was kind of like his perspective, like, yeah, fuck it, go for it. Didn't give him a lot of money. He got, like, jack shit money. Like, we're thinking, alright, so, in context, Angel's Egg was made for 800 million yen. In today's money, I think it's roughly $1.5 million. So, ain't a lot of money. Oshii had no saying, I don't believe, on Nausicaa, because Oshii would not have been in a position to make that comment at the time. Oshii had some pull with Bandai. I think Oshii was able to help push Royal Space Force because Bandai really respected Oshii. Well, one person in particular in the video department at Bandai respected Oshii's opinion because he saw him at that time before Angel's Egg came out. He saw him as a bit like he gets it. Like, he's got like the Urusei Yatsura under his belt. Dallos started doing really well. So like if he says something's going to do well eventually, like I will trust Oshii. So he had that, but I don't think he had any sway when it came to Nausicaa. I think that had more to do with Suzuki lying a lot about sale numbers and also the manga, basically bigging up how well the manga was doing. And then I think somebody like Ogata came in and was like, we want to do like a small video, and that transformed. Basically, they were going to try and do like video before video had taken off. They were like, oh, VHSs are new. Maybe we could do like a small video preview for Nausicaa, like a 10-minute one. And that turned into a movie. So that's kind of how it went. It kind of like built from there. Well, I think the key here for Seraphim is when they say it's going to be like Nausicaa, it's because they were both published in Animage. So Animage had this thing where, like, the back of Animage was the biggest, like, anime magazine in Japan at the time, like, readership-wise. At least in the 70s and 80s, I think the readership was really big. It was like 1 million people or something. I don't know how it went after that. But, after Nausicaa was successful in Animage and it got turned into a movie, they would publish other stories as well in the back. So you have lots of different things tried out. So Seraphim was another thing that got it had its time in the back of Nausicaa. Not Nausicaa, back of Animage. Obviously, it didn't go particularly anywhere. Like, it never got like any spin-offs. But I think that had to do more with, like, I think creator a conflict between Takon and Oshii. However that went. But yeah. I'm sure they wanted it to be big. I don't think it was, though. Well, it's interesting to talk about from Software for a second, because Oshii would not be the kind of person who would really give a shit if, like, I mean, technically they did, right? They took some stuff from that, but Oshii would not be the kind of person who would really care if From Software had, like, taken, like, little pastiches or little pieces and bits from Angel's Egg. I believe Dark Souls 3, the DLC, has a particular character that has some element of that. And maybe you could say there's, like, a vibe. But, like, Oshii's the kind of guy who would say, like, so, I took this from Stalker. I took it from, how do you say his name? Tarkovsky? Taranowski? I don't even know how to say the fucking guy's name. He'd be like, yeah, I stole it from him, though. So, fair is fair. And I mean, some of it's on Amano anyway. It's not really his aesthetic, is it? It's Amano's aesthetic. And also Kobayashi. Kobayashi and Amano really hold the aesthetic of the movie, stylistically, so I'd probably put it on them more than anyone else. Anyway, let's have a look at this document. We got a little sidetrack. Well, it's not technically sidetrack. It isn't the thing, but if there are plushes for Angel's Egg, I want to see that shit. I'd love to get one of those plushes if they do exist, but probably never will be able to get one. They're probably a Japanese exclusive if they ever happen. I don't feel like it's the kind of thing that usually would get plushes, but I think it would be very funny if it did. So what do we got at the top here? I assume these are all, the first three up here, I believe, are quotes from the Crunchyroll interview. I think in 2021, Oshii did the Russian director. In 2021, I believe Oshii did an interview with Crunchyroll. I think it was 21, might be 22. And these are there were some interesting quotes in there. I believe, what's this one? The first one. Those already exhibited at the Element would preoccupy Oshii's career, some like dreams. Much the reality. God, what the fuck are we actually even saying here? Is this actually from there, or have I got this from somewhere else? Let me have a look. I'm not Christian. I've been reading the Bible since my student days. I think this is actually from something else. I actually might need to remove that. I can't remember if that's actually... I've had that from another... Maybe I removed the wrong thing. There was another interview where he talked about this. But yeah, this is the first... This is the I'm not Christian quote. He had a couple of these. This is actually from a different interview. I don't know why it's still here. Unless he said it again in the Crunchyroll one. I can't remember. Yeah, the I'm not Christian, but I've been reading the Bible since my student days. Yeah, he likes the Bible. In his Naro course, his Naro course, he mentions, like, when he's giving advice for, like, what books you should read as a director, he goes, number 1, the Bible. And I was like, that's the funniest response I've ever heard to that question. Him being just like, yeah, just read the whole of the Bible. If you want to be a director, read the Bible. I was like, fucking, well, okay. It's a goofy one, but he very much likes, I guess, the style of such. Now, yeah, I believe the rest of this is from the Crunchyroll interview. Some of this is about autorism, which we'll probably talk about in the video. He mentions here about him being from, like, the film youth era in Japan, probably the 70s, I'm assuming he means. And they were all kind of like big French autorism heads. But that effectively, when he went into the industry, he kind of realized that kind of thought process was just kind of bunk and didn't really work. Like in an actual setting when you work with other people, especially in the animation industry, which is very different from the film industry. He kind of like learned the reality was quite different than the way he thought it would go. Which he thinks is a blessing in disguise, that he realized that, yeah, the collective nature of animation is very different than how he had expected it to be. But he also talks, which I suppose we did in the video, in terms of like how that changed when he became a director the first time. And I think he's talking about maybe Beautiful Dreamer and Urusei Yatsura here a little bit, where he got very heavy in that. And I think Beautiful Dreamer is probably the biggest position of that, considering how, like, he was basically fucking out of warring that situation and, like, going out of his way to trying to actively sabotage the producers from it being able to, like, stop him, which it's an interesting way of going about things, but it's not one if you want to keep your fucking job in that industry for too long. It's a deadly method that only works when you're on top, I suppose. Is this double? Did I write this twice? No. But it's interesting when he says about when he quit and he went freelance. The work I started doing instantly restricted my directorial freedom, and I quickly realized the importance of striking a right balance between entertainment and asserting your own vision. Which is the reality of, like, when you don't have a company to fall back on and you have to, like, take responsibility for things going wrong, as I did with Angel's Egg, it kind of changes your view about how if you want to be in the industry, I suppose. It's an unfortunate side effect of, if you want to stay around, if you don't want to get blacklisted, you have to take some sort of consideration of both sides of the equation. What are we saying? Yeah, there is a couple quotes. I believe there's a quote, when it comes to the Christian thing, the quote originally comes from the 96 interview, which I think I'd already referenced in the document, but it was called Dangerous Dreams, something like that. 96 Anime America interview with Oshii. Someone asked him if he was religious. He says no, but they translate something a bit funky and say something like, but he They translate it as, but I thought about going to the seminary. I think that's what they said, which was a really weird translation because he said this in other interviews, and it usually what he's saying is, I thought about studying it at school. He's talking about going to university and studying theology, basically. That he had thought about that for a bit. Not that he wanted to become like a priest or anything. And usually, even within the interview, they're like, "Oh, was that for religious reasons or philosophical reasons?" He said philosophical, and he said, "I've never been Christian myself, but I've just read the book." I guess he likes the quotes. He's read a couple other, I think, books on the tone and stuff like that. But yeah, like there'll be a part in the video where we're going to talk about that, and I'll bring up the evidence. There's some interesting, I think we might even look at it later. There's an interesting video he did in recent years when he actually went to talk to a religious institute, and they asked him some questions. But yeah, so let's go from, okay. This one here says uni interview. So this is a Japanese only university interview he does where he talks about his career, I believe. Basically, there's several different interviews where he's talking about, and I think this one next to it, where Oshii's talking about how his ego really kind of exploded after Beautiful Dreamer, and he was kind of on a real high, which basically ends very quickly as soon as Angel's Egg comes out. Well, basically as soon as it came out. But, he kind of, like that, blew out. So you have a couple of quotes like that where he talks about this. Now we go back to Forbes. Forbes has a pretty good interview with Oshii. I like that interview. There's a lot of good quotes in there. I think these were the ones that were relative to this. Yeah, so this is, I think, where I was saying he was talking about the movie. Until I heard from an acquaintance of mine who saw it at a film festival, I had no idea. When I was questioned about the production company, so that's Takuma Shoten about it, I learnt first time that the film had been sold overseas without permission. This is another bitter memory for me. And then what's this one about? I used all my techniques available to me at the time. It was the first time I was able to produce the way I wanted to, so I felt a sense of satisfaction from that, but I was criticized for being too difficult to understand. I stopped receiving offers of work for 3 years after that. It's a bitter memory, but it taught me a lesson about what's necessary when working as a director in the commercial film industry. Again, that is after his results with Angel's Egg, where he's talking about his reaction to that. What are we saying? No, so Carrot, you're wrong about that. I think I mentioned this in the video, like, it was, the reason there is Christian imagery in Evangelion is not because, quote, they thought it looked cool. There's some element of that, but there was definitely some elements of that where they were very much interested in the cult aspect, and we were taking, like, religious iconography because of that. Some talk about Om, because Om was big at the time, right? And Om took a lot from Buddhist imagery, so they were taking from Christian imagery. But Christian imagery within Mecca is like a very common, well, it's usually more the cross, the crucifix, stuff like that tends to be quite big in the like tokusatsu and mecha arenas. But you could probably take that back to like crucifixions in Japan are actually like a real thing that happened to Christians and also happened during World War II. So there is like a cultural element where crucifixion in Japan has like different connotations. Well, it is connected to like the Christian stuff. There are like different historical precedents about why that could appear in different pieces of medium. Some people would articulate that like with Ultraman, one of the creators of Ultraman was a Catholic, but I don't believe any of the Christian images happened when he was still in the production or directing these things. I think the earliest one was Ultra 7. I don't know, and I don't know if he had any, I think he might have been passed away by then, I'm not really quite sure. But yeah, I mean, they obviously spent a lot more time on it than they would say. Like Tsunomaki thinks that it was all bunk, but Anna was a little bit more engaged in it. And also, funny enough, what did Anna do? He went to Oshii and was like, can I borrow a book on theologian stuff? Because he knew Oshii had that shit. So he was reading stuff, and he's mentioning stuff that's not even in the Bible, right? He's mentioning stuff like Lilith. So if you know about Lilith, and you have to know about the extended lore of the Bible, like you wouldn't get that from just being like a casual observer if you didn't know anything about Christianity. You'd have to read up to that to understand like that Lilith is an extension on top of the Bible, like because it's from one of those one of those extended books that existed at the time. It's not actually directly referenced in the Bible itself. Well, technically, the idea about the angel fossil, if I understand right, is Oshii's originally because he wanted to do the fossiled angel thing in a Lupin movie, which never got made. And that must have been that might have been 84, might be sometime in 84 or a little bit before then, they were pitching this idea. Because again, this will be in the document as well. But what happened is Miyazaki didn't want to do another Lupin movie, but he was like pitched to do one. He had other plans. Oshii was given the project. He had this pitch. Part of the pitch involved Tower of Babel and other bits and pieces. Basically, the movie ended up getting released completely different. But so I think some ideas ended up in it, which is the 1985 Gold Babylon movie, I think it's called. But they had a very particular vision in mind. I believe Amano was also on that. They both were kind of into fossils at the time. They wanted to do something with fossils. They wanted to do something with a nuke. They wanted to do something with Lupin losing his existence. It was going to be very existential. But, I believe the rights holders were like, that sounds fucking weird. No one will buy that. So, no, we're not doing that. No, thank you. We'll do something else. And that was the end of that. But I'm not sure what fossil we're talking about there, but then probably intersex, I would imagine. But yeah, I mean, Amano and Oshii had pitched to do their own movie at the time. Yeah, but the idea of Angel's Egg exists for a while. It's not like it came out of nowhere. Like there's like, what episode are we talking about? Like, at what period are we talking about Lupin? What part are we talking about this angel? Because the idea of the fossils and stuff like that came strictly from Amano and Oshii's connection together, and they drew up some pictures for that. Like, I might even have an image on me. I might be able to find it, but there is an illustration, I think, from that time period of like the actual fossil, which would have done in house during the early pre-production. But like, Oshii also drew a lot of imagery of angels and eggs in 1982. Before Angel's Egg was even on the table. Like, he had some imagery in some of his earlier sci-fi work that had quite similar pangs of what would go that way. But like, it's entirely possible they were pitching around that time, because I think it could have been 82. It's really hard to tell like at what period. They don't really specify at what period this movie was like being pitched, so I can't give you a specific year. It could well have been pitched around the same time as the series was coming out. But there were a lot of ideas running around, and I've heard various ideas about where they all came from. I don't really know if Lupin was I don't even know if Oshii was a big watcher of the original series. He seemed to think with, he quotes in the interview while talking about the movie ideas that he kind of thought like the idea was a bit dated. He wasn't really a massive Lupin guy, and that's why he wanted to do something kind of weird with it, kind of evolve it, as he said. Yeah, okay, I've got the image here. Maybe this is the one they're talking about, but I could probably bring it into the chat. Let me see if I can grab this image, because I have it on board. Image, okay. Let me find the image. Where would it be? In here. This one. There we go. Maybe it's this image they're talking about, but yeah, so this image here. Oh, fuck. I just moved this. I didn't mean to move that. How do I go back? There we go. So this image here. I'll put it in front of me. Kenji Kaneyama apparently drew this one. I believe this image here has some connection to it all. I can't remember where I got this image from, but I believe this is one of the early concept drawings they had about this idea, which came into it, but I'm not really sure the connection of it. I'm assuming Kenji's like a TMS member or something. But that was one of the... Oh, fucking hell, I've moved it again. But there are also other imagery that they drew up for this event, but I don't think they had got too far in terms of the production on like these ideas. But I have some images around, but I'm wondering where I put them. God knows. I know I was drawing them up somehow, but I turned them into a document. But where did they go? Oh, maybe it's here. How would I show that on stream? It's probably not worth it, to be fair. It's kind of just like background noise. Anyway, I'll get rid of this image for now. Maybe this is one they were talking about. I mean, Kenji's probably someone in TMS, I imagine. The thing is as well. I think it's important to say there are fossils in Urusei Yatsura. In episode 47 of Urusei Yatsura, there is a whole episode dedicated to fossils and of those of dead creatures that kind of relate to the entire idea. And that would have came out in like 82, 81. So like well, if it's 47, it would have probably been the beginning of 82. Somewhere around then, because it would be, 47 would probably, no, I guess it was somewhere in 1982. There was an episode of Urusei Yatsura which was, under Oshii's control, that had an episode that was dedicated to fossils, and had very specific imagery in it, which I believe was almost a precursor to a lot of stuff. Well, I don't know if I say precursor, but it's the imagery that obviously he seems to be interested in enough to bring back later, or there is some interest there in the production. It feels like very, I don't know if that episode is that original? No, I don't know if that episode is even original, but I think some of the ideas and some of the presentation is definitely of its own. Yeah, I mean, this is pretty early on. The thing is that Lupin 2 and Urusei Yatsura, I think they were airing around the same time, so I don't know who predates who on that one. Though I suppose, the concept of like angels in fossils, I think that's kind of been around for a while. I mean, even Simpsons did an episode on that. I think there's some folklore around that for a while, so it's not exactly it's a unique idea. Anyway, where were we? What were we talking about again? But yeah, I don't know when they start communicating about it, though. It's hard to say. I mean, it's probably after Amano went freelance, which I think he went freelance in. Oh, when did he go freelance? Oh, it was in the book. I think he went freelance in like it was either 1980 to it might be 1981 or 1980. He went freelance. Definitely 1982. He was already freelance, Mr. Amano. Well, I mean, Amano. So I think I'll probably mention the document. Well, I'll get into it because I think I've got them in photo caps, but I don't know if I've got them in front of me. So in Amano's biography book, he mentions here that both, I think it was in that, they both worked at Tatsunoko. So Amano left school at the age of 16. He dropped out and he joined Tatsunoko pretty quickly. He brought like a portfolio, came in and was like, I want to work, basically. I think he saw a flyer or some shit. And he was just, I'm in. He was in, and he became a character designer very quickly. He was an animation director for a time. He kind of went quite high. He drew a lot of fucking characters for Tatsunoko. Eventually, he got sick of it all, and I think he got really stressed with the amount of characters and designs he had to continuously keep making. And he decided to go freelance, and he became an illustrator for a time, and he worked in a lot of sci-fi magazines. I mean, Nadia, the Blue Water idea, I think the original pitch for that was from the 70s. So you see a lot of that going around. I mean, it's kind of based on a novel, but there's some other little bits and pieces that aren't. It depends how much you want to take of like the original pitch being in the Arno version. It's hard to really say how much of it was like one for one. I think there's definitely some elements that probably weren't, especially the alien stuff. But I mean, yeah, I think Laputa has some similar elements. Just because Nadia was originally a pitch cancelled from the 70s, that was probably then some of those elements probably brought back in, as they say. What were we saying? 1987? Tsurubara may have been the whole Crosslight, maybe? Maybe, I'm not sure. A winged fossil? Wait, what are we talking about? Is there a winged fossil in Nadia? Or in Laputa? I know there's fossils in that one. I don't for the life of me remember. I remember there's a big Adam in that. There's like a big guy who's like Adam who's like in the ice. They might have had other. There was like a lot of random shit in the walls. Anyway, in Nadia. Well, I mean, Nadia came out a long time after Angel's Egg, and I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if Arno had seen it. But I mean, yeah, some of these ideas are around. Is there a? There might be. Is there an angel there? I know there's definitely Adam. I remember they had like the giant, who I guess was almost like one of the Evangelions. Like, there's a big giant they called Adam, who was like one of the first, I guess, when they were saying about creating these things. I wouldn't be surprised if there was. Yeah, maybe there was a fossil there. I don't remember, but it's a long time ago. I've watched. Well, I guess the last time I watched it was for the video I did. Yeah, I don't know if that's in the original pitch document or not, though, from the 70s. Anyway, where were we? Let me have a look at the document again. I'm getting sidetracked. Right, so ego, anything. Where are we here? Forbes. I think we did the Forbes one, right? Yeah. Screenwriting books, another Japanese book I have. There are like 7 or 8 different people from the Japanese industry, many of the anime industry stuff. And Oshii has an interview in there, which is kind of interesting. He doesn't mention Angel's Egg a lot, but he basically just gives a couple notes about it. Says he didn't write a script. It was mainly notes. And then went into storyboarding, which is very similar to what you hear about Beautiful Dreamer. Though, like, the production method sounds like a lot of it involved him having notes, then Amano would draw shit, and then he'd take that, and they'd readjust it, and he'd pick bits and pieces. He'd write more notes, then Amano would draw more stuff, and he'd like piece them together and turn them in, like curate them into like a structure. And the way it effectively went in the biography book from Amano, he says that they tried to pitch it first as a Animage Bunko, the small little books, basically. Like, they pitched it as like a little image book, basically. Or there was like some part where that began, where they would bring that to get the foot in the door, basically. Be like, we want to pitch this as one of the little books, the ones they sell for about 400 yen. And that did definitely come out, though I don't think it came out too much after the movie. I think the movie sort of changed the trajectory there a bit. But yeah, like, there's a lot of the original image boards that Amano created, which tend to have like little pieces of like text next to them, little dialogue, little esoteric pieces that Oshii wrote and connected them together and turned them into like a little storybook. I think at that point the story was pretty much consistent with the movie. Okay, Persona's gonna be a big one. Yeah, I remember there's a lot of stuff in the ice. I can't remember if they were fossils or they were just frozen things. I definitely remember there being Adam there. Where are we anyway? Aliens be aliens, huh? Terminal Dogma in the original sketch. Well, yeah, that might have been. What do we mean by Terminal Dogma? Sorry, then what was I? I'm losing my mind a bit. Let's get back to the source thing. So I haven't even got past these ones yet. Persona is a big one. We have 2 sources of Persona. Persona is another book by Oshii. A lot of stuff in there. There's quite an extensive section on Angel's Egg. So these first notes, these are from Ihoba's blog. Ihoba had a blog where he basically goes through a lot of Oshii's books, and he kind of gave like some summaries of some points here. I don't know where the image link is for this. It seems to have gone. Must be earlier in the document, because it's I think it's an earlier source, basically. So I got a couple quick ones here, which are interesting to me in terms of, like, originally the story was going to be a comedy that was set in Japan. Amano's character designs have more Western fantasy look. You just tend to hear Oshii say this. So you said, like, yeah, they have this more Western look, and they weren't particularly comedic. So they kind of went for something a bit more serious. But Oshii has a lot of different ways of telling that story. He has like very particular. Some of them get a bit more like personal. Some of them get a bit more like it's just a vibe. Or yeah, he tells that one in a lot of different ways. There's only a couple notes here. They talk about the tank scene. We'll get into the tank scene with this here, because we have a nice translation. I believe this is also. I think Ihoba did this. Somebody did this, but someone basically translated the whole Angel's Egg section in Persona, or like most of it. So there's some good stuff in there. A couple of final things there is, yeah, I think I talked about earlier, the narrow course, he says recommends read the Bible. His self-admitted liar, which I'll probably bring up in the video, he flaunts that in the Spotify podcast with Kojima, about how he just loves to lie. He thinks that like, directors are like natural-born liars. You got to lie a lot as a director. You got to say a lot of things that aren't true. You got to pitch a lot of things. You got to talk a lot, and you might say some things that aren't true because it's good for the story. It's good for the bit, especially when you're doing interviews. So you always got to take Oshii with a little bit of pinch of salt, but it's hard to say when. You got to kind of play it selectively, I suppose. Another one of these cocky in the situations. Like we've got like 3 of those now, where it's like I became too cocky. This one's in English. It'll probably become the priority 83. Probably will become the first link on the document in my script, and I will probably throw the other 2 as connecting tissues, which would be this one and this one. So those can go under it as secondary. Maybe they can be the secondary extras because they're effectively all saying the same thing. But you know, it's good to have this. It's good to have the source, the main source in English, so there's no like possibility of any miscommunication or a mistranslation. All right, so we'll click the. I'll open this document, and I hope. Well, let's see if I hope I'll have to check them. Yeah, okay, it did follow through. That's good. Yeah, I mean, I think Kojima's been quite clear about that. I mean, especially with you know, you see it a lot in Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2, in terms of like Oshii, you know, Ghost in the Shell stuff especially. But I mean, they're friends. They're friendly, very friendly. In that podcast, one of the most interesting things in that podcast to me, is I think at one point they say, I think there's one part where like Kojima's basically spitballing like, wouldn't it be great to produce something with Oshii? And Oshii's like, you probably don't want to do that because you'll learn to hate me. Because there's the difference between being like friendly with somebody and then actually making something with them, and like both very opinionated. I don't know how that's going to work. And then he talked about Dallas in that phrase. He was like, I've worked with my mentor before, and that went very poorly. Like, you know, having 2 people who have very strong opinions connected to each other, it becomes a nightmare to get anything done when you're like as stubborn as I am. So it becomes very difficult to like manage the expectations of where the project is going when they're kind of like both fighting about what the direction should be, which is then how you would then organize management materials, the connection between like what are we doing, you know, who's working on what's actually happening, where's the script going, can be its own problem. No, I would have. I don't know if that necessarily means that Kojima couldn't easily just fund something that Oshii wanted to do. I don't think that would be very difficult for him to do at all. But I don't know. We'll see where that goes. It will probably be a lot easier for them to do that live action, because when it comes to animation, you need a lot of infrastructure, which Kojima Production does not have unless they make it in CGI, which, I don't know, probably, Oshii would probably be okay with that. But then if you do it in CGI, it's going to be very expensive. Well, a lot more expensive than maybe the alternative would be. So I don't know what their plans are there. I don't know if there's ever going to be a plan. I think this is more of a spitballing thing, but I thought it was an interesting part of the conversation where they mentioned that. You never know. Kojima might put some money into whatever the next the next Oshii project is, because most of them have been fairly independent of later years. I mean, Oshii really likes Death Stranding, so it wouldn't surprise me if there's some connection there. Anyway, so let's have a look at this document. I'm going to read through this one because this document is a big fucking deal. There's a lot of stuff in here which I've heard nowhere else. When I found it, I was a bit shocked. I was like, holy fuck, really? So I'm gonna have a read of this one. So let me see about so I don't think there is any real room for doubt about the central metaphor of a man using his sword to break. Okay, so I don't know if this is actually, I think this might be just a summary here at the top here. Well, yeah, they're talking about Jungian. Yeah, some of it you can get to Jungian like allegory, which is possible if you want to do a reading of Angels. Like, if you really want to, you can go that way, I guess, but I don't think it's necessary. But let's start with the actual document then. If I remember correctly, I was suddenly gotten to the idea for Angel's Egg. It's not a long... Sorry, let me read that again. If I remember correctly, I suddenly got an idea of Angel's Egg. It's not a long planned project. At first, I came up with a story where a girl strolls around ruins, which I think is actually one of his older ideas. Well, he talks about this before, about he likes these ruined concept ideas from his college days, I think, or his, I guess, school days would probably be a better way. Carrying some sort of egg. However, I changed the ruins to a convenience store at some point, which I think is when it came the early comedy version of it. A bunch of weird guys appear at night. The old guy is reading a magazine. Some guys are eating rice balls, and so on. The girl has a big belly, comes in. The egg falls down from her belly, and it was supposed to be a comedy at the time. At 12 o'clock, the arc suddenly appears and comes to the convenience store. Okay. Yoshitaka Amano's art style was chosen later. Maybe I chose him. He totally changed the film. If I'd kept the original plot, it would have been more like Gosenzo Sama Banzai. I was planning to write a theatrical style, play style. When I looked at Amano's drawings, I thought, this doesn't work. This art needs more decent fantasy. I revised the plot quickly, and maybe I couldn't forget the loop on the third project that she's referring to, the one that got cancelled. So some of the ideas were brought back from loop on the third. The arc is one of the reused ideas. I believe there was also an arc in that, and the Tower of Babel, a nuclear bomb, depressed Lupin, a lot of random ideas went around with that one. The girl in the Tower of Babel was turned into a girl with an egg. The fossil of an angel was also reused as well, which, the fossil of the angel, I think originally comes from this project. At least the way he would tell it, it seems like the angel fossil seems to come from that original project when they were sort of devising it. I wouldn't be surprised if like the TV show took from them on the unused floor. If that was, it depends on the timeline though, I suppose. I didn't write the script. I explained to higher ups that it's meaningless to write a script in this film. I wrote a storyboard from scratch. Maybe I gave them some simple plot though. The project was approved more easily than I expected. I wrote the storyboard in Studio Dean. I remember that I wrote it near a heater, so it was winter. So if it was winter, this is probably going to be the winter of '84. That would make the most sense. This is pre-production, winter of '84. He would have left Pero. They left Pero. That would have been August. So sometime during the winter, a little bit later on, Oshii is already there. I think Studio Dean was still making Urusei Yatsura in those days, and Koso Yamasaki was working there. When the project was officially approved, they decided to make a temporary studio with Studio Dean. We rented an apartment room, we brought desks and gathered the crew there. I think the production finally started in spring. Key animation was delayed in the summer because of the studio was too hot, which sounds like they did not have AC, which feels bad, man. I think a lot of the studios don't. I think the convenience store oh, in fact, this camera's about to die, is it? How long has it been? I'll have to wait. I mean, it'll probably shut down at some point. I'll have to switch the cameras out when it does that. Hopefully one of his batteries around here is actually charged. Where's the other one gone? I've got one here in front of me, but I don't think that one's charged. I should put them on beforehand, but I don't remember where I put all the batteries. Shit, I have moved them somewhere. I don't know where I put them. My God, I'm very unprepared. I have them somewhere. What the hell did I do with them? Maybe they're in the other room. Well, I'll check in a little bit. I'll wait until this one dies out. We probably got like another 5 minutes, maybe. Yeah, I try and set a timeline because it's quite hard to find one. This is probably the only book where I've found an actual timeline of set of events. The budget was, what, for Angel's Egg? It was 80 million. Like I said earlier, it's, in today's inflation, $1.5 million. At the time, probably a third of that. $500,000 would be the American equivalent, but yeah, about $80 million. Not too far off. I think that's basically the same kind of money you're going to see in Beautiful Dreamer. They did not have a lot of money in these projects. Though I think at least with Beautiful Dreamer, you already have an infrastructure set down. You have the studio, you have talent, everyone's already kind of like there, where it's a bit more difficult in Angel's Egg because they have to basically build everything again from the ground up. I prefer to have the stream camera there if I have to. I mean, I've got another battery here which might die very quickly, but I should have another battery that's charged maybe in the other room. I don't know what I did with it. Maybe it is in the other room. When it becomes a problem, I'll worry about it then. Let's see where we are. When the project was officially approved, they decided, yeah, okay, we've read that bit. Let's have a look. So drawing in the winter, that's pre-production. So production starts in the spring. We have a little temporary delay in the summer because it's too hot, but there weren't very many animators to begin with. Before getting into the animation phase, we asked Amano to draw shot image. Basically, he drew a lot of image boards. A lot. And he'd already drawn a lot of images to begin with. He was taken out of Yokohama. Yeah, so he lived in 64. So this is interesting. Oshii says he lived in the studio for 1 week. Amano says he lived in the studio basically the entire production. He says he was basically there the entire time. And he got very sick at the end. So I assume he was there probably longer than a week. He drew about 400 sketches with colored ink, which is probably the image board. It makes sense because there's 400 layouts. So he did a sketch for every layout, basically. I never saw him leaving his desk, eating, nor using the bathroom. He stood up only twice a day. I knew many artists that don't eat during work, but I've never seen a person that didn't use the bathroom. God, fucking his poor kidneys. He just kept drawing. I saw him sleeping at the floor only a few times. Apparently he just stayed there. That's what he says in his book, at least. The image boards were finished, but an animation director didn't come to the studio. Yeah, it sounds like the animation director basically just didn't show up or abandoned the project. He didn't come to the studio even with the layout phase. Then Toshio Suzuki introduced me to Yasuhiro Nakura, who became the animation director. Suzuki said he did a great job in Little Memol. I'm not sure what Little Memol is, but I guess it was popular at the time. You should meet him. When Suzuki met Nakura, Nakura said to him, "Oh, you finally came here. I knew you needed me. When I saw Amano's sketches, I felt my destiny was to draw them. I thought he was overconfident at first, but Nakamura's art style convinced me. I asked him to draw a layout as a trial, and it was pretty good. I quickly hired him, and the production speed was accelerated thanks to him." Now, in an interview of him, I believe he said he starts in August. So there's quite a long period between, like, starting production and just basically not having an animation director until maybe around August, summertime. It's hard to get the exact things, but that's the general gist I was getting at the time. Yeah, Mano's kind of crazy. But yeah, he's had some stories. I mean, it sounds like it was pretty rough on him because I think the backbone of the movie was pretty much reliant on Kobayashi, who did layout. He was basically the layout director, and that like every layout went through Kobayashi, and he would usually just draw them again. The thing is, I think you might be setting yourself up as a bit of a boomer because I don't think I've heard anyone who's still angry about playing as Raiden. I don't think it's a big deal. I don't think it matters. And now he's like a cyborg ninja. I think it's actually kind of more advantageous to play as Raiden. I was like, yeah, well, why not? Play as a cyborg ninja sounds pretty good. It's interesting. But I don't really have an issue with playing him in 2. I don't think it's a big deal. His moveset is basically the same as Snake's. It's not like there's a huge... I mean, he doesn't roll his sidekicks, I guess. He has better grip. I mean, I think it serves the purpose of the narrative, and I think it works in that case. I think it gets a bit more difficult when you bring him back and you have to kind of like just sweep the ending of Metal Gear 2, which was open-ended, and I think in an interesting way. You have to kind of sweep that under the rug and be like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about that. And then you move on. It would have been nicer, I suppose, if that was it, but I think it's interesting to see him in the second arc. Anyway, yeah, so like Kobayashi was basically the layout director, and he would basically, every of those layouts, there's about 400 cuts in Angel's Egg, and he would basically correct every single one of them. And sometimes that just involved him he'd just redraw the whole thing. So he would get the layout and he'd just redraw the thing entirely with all his corrections, and then they'd use that. So in a way, Kobayashi probably drew every layout technically drew the refined version of every one of them in the movie. Sometimes he'd make about 70 corrections per sheet, is what Oshii was saying, which is kind of fucking insane. A lot of them very small, like things you wouldn't really notice, but he would know, because a lot of his position on the layout is that he was very good at knowing how to move animation through a scene in perspective, and knowing where the animation should go and how it would feel cohesive in the shot. Basically, he was very good at connecting those two worlds. Production speed accelerated. Animation caused big trouble in Angel's Egg. I tried to convince animators. I said the film needs dedicated work, but some of them ran away at the end. So yeah, a lot of it, I mean, we know at least one person. He named Hano very early on, that like Hideaki Anno was on at the beginning of the production. He did a couple layouts and then he fucked off, basically. He was like, I ain't doing this shit. And he left. But it seems to be alleged that there are other animators who were like that, who did not stay until the end. There's a couple uncredited people who maybe those cases, one of them was the director of Black Magic 66. He was uncredited animation on it, which means he might have ran away. A couple other people. It's really hard to tell who stayed and who went, basically. And yes, I had to ask the remaining animators to work extra key animation. They might have had other projects, but I asked them to finish this one first. Most of them agreed. I think I convinced to put each person on the rooftop. Probably turn that into a drawing. I think that's an interesting imagery. We managed to finish the key animation, but then Nakamura's work was delayed. It sounds like this production hit him pretty bad. In some of the interviews around that time, they mentioned, like, I saw you in August and you look fine. I see you in October and you have grey hair now, and you look famished and you look dead inside. Which is an interesting comparison, I suppose. But, it doesn't surprise me. And they're also talking here about the in-betweens were a nightmare, that each hairline had to be animated, but no in-between animators wanted to do that. We teamed up with the best skilled in-between in the crew called Shindo Productions, but even Shindo had difficulty with the film. The last in-between animation task was shot where the mature girl suffers in the water, which I think is from Futaki, I think her name is, one of Ghibli animators. It was a tremendous key animation, but we didn't know how in the world we would draw the in-betweens, basically. And then Kumiko Yuasa managed to finish it. She was the color designer on Patlabor. I feel like this person actually ended up doing a lot of color design with Oshii, but I'd need to double check on that, because he definitely has a character. I know there's one person he worked with quite a lot from like Patlabor 2 onwards. It might be her. She was a color designer of Patlabor, but she used to do in-between animation in those days. I mean, a lot of the story about Angel's Egg is kind of interesting in the way that, like, it sounds like there's like 3 people or 4 people in this production that if they didn't exist, this thing wouldn't have been finished. Like, there's just like these random people who are like, yeah, they like stepped up and then it got finished. And if they didn't, fuck knows what would have happened. Why would you kill your friend for thinking Ranma is better than Ursa? Yes. What? Well, the animes? I mean, I think the beginning of the Ranma anime is pretty good. It's different, obviously. I don't know if it's really comparable. The giant, I don't really remember how they decide. I mean, it's kind of interesting because some of the early images of the flying object in Angel's Egg have like a city on it. So like a lot of the early layouts for it, they have this. I may even be able to show it because I do have some images of it here. So if I get up like, fuck, can I just drag that into OBS? Will that work? No? Alright, maybe I can just switch it out then. I've got to go find it again now. I think it's in downloads. Where is it? Where'd it go? Oh no, I can't find it now. No! He was here a second ago. Where'd it go? God damn it. How did it vanish from thee? Then you go quick access maybe? Will it be here? Oh, that's really annoying. I can literally see it, but I don't know. Can I just drag it in? Earlier this week. Let me see if it'll let me. Does that work? I can see the image. I know where it is, but it's not coming up when I look for it on the screen, which is driving me a bit insane. Oh, I think that's dead. Well. Where'd it go? It's not here. Why is it? Oh, maybe. All right. Maybe it's an incompatible format. Never mind. Fuck. Damn. Let me switch. Hopefully this battery has some power in it. I've got another one here. Oh, going around. Okay. Get it back in. Come on. Come on, camera. Come on. Right, does that work? Maybe I've got to turn it off for a second. Let's turn it back on. There we go. Don't know how long this battery will last, but there we go. Let me blur it. Let me read the chat and let's catch up. As the sun? Oh, for fuck's sake! This fucker's now missed out. Oh my god! All right, well. All right, Lupon. If you find it incredibly boring, I don't know why you brought it up. It's a fucking random thing to say. Look, I'm not a fan of ghost stories dubbing. I think it's kind of shit. So I'm not going to be the person to be like, yeah. I also think the way it happened sounds fucking awful and like really disrespectful. And I can totally see why that doesn't happen anymore. Because, you know, they just lied about the production with like, didn't do well in Japan, which is not true. And they just did whatever the fuck they did. And I don't know if the production company even knew at the time. Sounds kind of fucked, to be honest. All right, well, I guess this battery's going to die at some point. Well, let's find out. Well, maybe we'll end the stream soon. So I didn't get very far in this at all. Jeez. Oh well. Right, where was I? Let's see where we are. So I'll try and color designer. The tank scene was memorable as well. In the tank scene, the internal organs climb up the slope. It's a weird way of putting it, but people said it was impossible to draw in-betweens for that shot, but the one guy said he wanted to draw them and he was supposed to be the animation checker for the whole in-between animation, but because he was dedicated only to that shot, he drew every day, and it took about 6 weeks for him to sort that out, basically. The color designer and style checker was Yasada, that's from Ghibli, and the background artist, technically art director as well, that's Kobayashi. He was a really great person. When he looked at the animation layouts, he'd erase and redraw them, which was what I was saying. He'd say, that's wrong, this doesn't work. Basically that for all of them by the sounds of it. When I watched him redoing the layouts, he explained what was wrong with them. And it says, if this line is extended, then it will contradict each other. Look at this person's head, it's higher than the second floor. I learned the basic knowledge about layouts from Shichiro-san. I learned the fun of layouts at the time. I think that layout is probably the most important process of anime. I brought that principle to Patlabor. Shinichiro also invented a unique technique in Angel's Egg where he would put a cell on top of the background. Yeah, I think I've actually seen this. He basically put a cell on top of the background sheet and he would draw in a permanent... he would draw pavement lines of the cell. Then he would insert the fish shadow cell in between them. So if I understand right, what you're saying is, yeah, so you could see the highlights in the pavement between the shadows, like the highlights on the pavement or the shadows on the pavement were on a top layer, so they sort of create a different kind of effect when you put them together. It gives a more accurate sort of shadow feeling because you still get the indents from the pavement when the shadow goes over it. He had a lot of kooky ideas like that. Angel Lake was a fun experience for me. I was allowed to do many experiments, and I think it made. I think I could make it much better now, but in between animators couldn't do what. But in between animators couldn't do any more in those days. I felt we did our best. After finishing the animation, Yoshihiro Kano came in. He was decent. Oh yes, this is the composer, contemporary classic musician. He said he liked the concept of this film and the soundtrack was excellent. We hired many chorus singers and recorded the orchestra so quickly. I used that kind of music recording style only in this film. Casting was difficult. We chose Jinpachi Nesu quickly, but we couldn't find a good actor for the girl. Then Shiba-san suddenly brought a girl to the audition. That was Mako. How do you say that? Hyodo? Oh, sorry, I don't think I can read that. Sorry, I don't even know how to read that one. I have to say that properly. So many ideas, included the talent resources, are packed into the film. It's a very personal film, for sure. I put all my primitive imagination into it, like ruins, waters, fish, birds, some religious feelings, and the apocalypse. It is an archetype for many of my films. It's sort of a myth to me, the myth look of my own origins. Kind of bullshit himself here a bit, though. I didn't intend to homogenize the film myself. However, I tried to analyze the understanding of my dreams on one audience. I think it's only possible in film form. Alright, he's kind of starting to yap now. So many people asked me what was in the egg. I repeatedly had to ask the identical core to the film experience. On the other hand, I was impressed by a question from one of the animators, Toyoko Emura. I think they did about 50 cuts, if I remember right. Maybe it was 20, somewhere in between those two. And when he said, I have a question about the egg, I said, oh, this again. And he said, however, what he would ask was, how much does it weigh? It never asked about the contents, just how many kilos does it weigh. I was surprised, and I realized animators aren't bothered by abstract concepts. They only think about realistic scales. I guess, in the practicality of drawing it, I think the kilos is kind of an important question to ask in terms of how much resistance it will have when you do things with it. I didn't know what I was... I didn't know that when I was making Urusei Yatsura, Angel's Egg was more an interesting experience in that kind of sense too. However, I suffered from backlash, and I mean, I totally lost... Technically, he was independent, so I don't know if he really had a job, but I think this is in connection to him basically not getting anything greenlit for 3 years. But yeah, there you go. Phew, that was a bit of a read. I need to get some more water, really. And maybe another battery. I do have a third one. I think it's in the other room. I might need to go to the bathroom first. Don't know how long I'll go, though. I'll probably need to make some dinner at some point. I have 3 batteries for the camera. I just don't know where all of them are. Like, one of them was charged. This one was the one from last time, so it probably wasn't charged, but I couldn't find the battery pack, which I assume is in the other room, but I didn't want to leave. So I will leave this one until it dies. But then, when this one dies, I might end the stream, depending, because I would like to make some dinner. And then maybe I will return. I might be streaming tomorrow, because I think I might be releasing the Dalos video tomorrow. So I may come back, but that might be on the other channel just to promote this one. Bungie Gummy. How's it going? I've been a fan of the videos for years. Angel's Egg is my personal favourite of mine. I worked hard to be able to afford the animation. Oh, that's very cool, actually. Which cell do you have, Gummy? Do you have a record of it? Because I'd love to see a picture of it. Because I'm always looking for pictures of the cell. I was looking for the cells a little bit earlier when I was starting to like plot the video out. It depends what it comes with. Mainly I was looking for the Gengar, but I like seeing how they sort of all slide and connect to each other. I have one pretty good example of that, One of the interesting ones you see is something Persona was kind of mentioning was that the way Kobayashi does it is he has these backgrounds and he paints them quite articulately, but usually with like faint kind of paint. It's usually like like almost like a gouache or like a watercolor, and then he uses color pencil. But then like any of the inks, especially in Angel's Egg, what he would do is the ink content will be done on top of it on like a cell. Like he'd get a marker out and he'd color in black stuff like that. And I think maybe some of the bigger clumps might be blacked out depending on the scene. But yeah, usually like the articulate detail of blacks will be done on a cell. He'd just draw on top of it with an ink marker basically. And so then you'd have like the background, then he'd just put a cell on top of it, and then sometimes he could use that to then have a cell in between them if he's going to do like the shadows, and he'd play with that. Get a hamster on the wheel. Maybe I should. Yeah. I think Angel's Egg is pretty good. I don't know if I'm going to give... I don't like giving scores out of 10. I mean, there is mention. I swear in some interview they do mention of a lineage. I don't know if I would say that they're exactly the same, because Belladonna has a very particular kind of... Its direction is kind of interesting, because Belladonna is like a precursor to a lot of the shoujo expressionism, you know, but like a lot of that is stills and watercolor backgrounds and stuff like that. But they have a particular sort of mushi pro style, I could say, where they're thinking about like the limitations of the medium and how they can kind of like push past that and try and do lots of different things with that. Where Angel's Egg is definitely more of Kobayashi's style in terms of like Kobayashi's work tended to be quite impressionistic, but with like lots of deep blacks. A lot of ink and black work there. He used to be like a more avant-garde painter, so some of that sort of element to his brushwork can come in there. And he has his own team as well, so like there's a very particular way that, you know, like a lot of his work during the sort of late 70s. I believe he was, I think they mentioned that he started at Toei, and then he moved, I think, to Nippon Animation with like the Miyazaki gen. Fuck, I don't know if that's my old or new one. I don't know what actually is making the bleep. Oh god. I would have to double check. Which is it? One of these? Is it ready? Is it this one? Let me double check. Maybe I need to move it to the top and see if it still works. Does it? Oh fuck knows. I can't remember if that's from the old one. It might just be subscribers from my main channel. Something that's a bit. Never mind. Yeah, I mean, Kobayashi also worked on, he worked a lot with Dasaki, but he also worked on things like Cagliostro. He's got quite an eclectic, like, broad kind of but I feel like Dasaki's kind of probably the aesthetic he's more well known in that sort of way. I believe we might get into the document. I think Ogre. Oh, fuck. Alright, this one's dead. Oh, boy. Well, you know what? Maybe I'm just going to let maybe I'll get rid of the camera for a little bit. I don't want to deal with that. Ah, Fury Curry, thank you very much. I do fair, I see you in the streams sometimes. Appreciate you moved to the next one, well, into the new chat, I suppose. I think they stylistically have different approaches to stuff, because Angel's Egg is a bit more in that Taranowski era of like the way it does surreal imagery, in that it's still very planted in its reality, where Belladonna is not planted in its reality at all. The reality around Belladonna is completely it completely erodes depending on the emotional sensation of the characters, and I guess you could say that's why it feels quite shoujo, and that like everything around in Belladonna doesn't really exist until it does, and it can kind of like play with that in a lot of different ways. Where like in Angel's Egg, I think it's more just like the environment itself seems strange and odd, but it is a very solid structure. Damn, 100% better? That's impressive. You know, Foxmore, you know, you're actually not that off there. In terms of Kobayashi also did the backgrounds. He was the art director on Berserk '97. So aesthetically, I would definitely say there's definitely a through line between those two because yeah, Kobayashi did all the art direction on Angel's Egg with his crew. They did all the backgrounds and he did the layouts too, and then the art direction on Berserk is the same. Now I don't know if he did all the layouts though on Berserk or not. I'm not really sure, but he was probably more involved with Angel's Egg, I would assume. Right. I don't know how much longer I will go. Let's just maybe I'll go for like another 10, 20. But let's quick. So yeah, Fight to Win is the book. Kobayashi says, yeah. So I have this whole thing written down about it. I think I've got it translated. Kobayashi was talking a lot about perspective. Kobayashi was talking about like to do the scene with the tanks. He said you had to bend the landscape, and I think he's also talking about bending the trajectory of the tanks and how they move. Because Kobayashi talks in an interesting factor that like perfect perspective is not enough. He is kind of a person where he talks a lot about like the vibe has to be right in a way that he says like the way a camera lens works is it kind of warps perspective in different like areas because of how that lens affects how it looks. So like perfect perspective will not work if you want it to look like a camera shot. So like perspective can be kind of varied, or it can feel varied depending on like the back, middle, and forward of the scene. And he says there's lots of different things you can do to make things feel a certain way, or feel more like atmospheric, or feel closer to the camera and stuff like that. And they don't necessarily make sense in perfect perspective, but they need to make sense to the eye. And he talks about that in an interesting way, and I think that's what Oshii's saying about like the logic of him. But he was really into like the logic and how layouts work, and how he spent a lot of time like picking his brain about how that all functions. Part 2, yeah, I think this is where I was talking about earlier about there's something in here about the sloppy proposal. So Suzuki made this dodgy proposal up for Angel's Egg during the pitch. After I think they got through the book period, Suzuki made up a pitch for Oshii, and it was allegedly it was well, I don't think it says in the book, but I think Suzuki may have talked about it at some other place where I believe he might have said something like that. He made himself like he made like this bog standard pitch, and Oshii read it and was like, this is crap, I don't want to use this. So he kind of like was very impassioned and pissed off that Suzuki gave him such a shit thing, so he kind of just like winged it. He was like, I don't need this. He's like, I know, but he's like, no, this isn't right, it's this, and this. But yeah, one of the insane things Oshii did is he told everyone, I do not want a salary. I just want royalties. And I was like, what the fuck are you on about? This man is insane. He has Oshii has an ex-wife, a child, and a new wife, and he's like, I just want to get paid for a year. Are you crazy? Yeah, I mean, I think Miyazaki also talks about like he doesn't use perfect perspective either because he makes it too stiff. But you kind of have to understand perspective. To not use perfect perspective, you have to understand perspective, which is difficult, right? You have to kind of like understand the feeling of what perspective is and how it should be warped. So you need to then know the fundamentals. So it is this kind of like weird thing where it's like you having the grid there is useful at first, definitely to give you like a basis, but then you probably have to like move past the grid. But yeah, Oshii, that was when I heard that, I was like, that is fucking crazy. Because he was like, oh, I'll just get paid by royalties. This man will have made no money on this film. It didn't sell. So he just didn't make any money. It's like, oh my God. He's just like, oh yeah, I'll get royalties. It's like, bro, do you think this is going to sell? Do you think this is going to do fucking Urusei Yatsura numbers? Are you high? You had to have understood. Maybe he didn't. There is a period I think we'll get to later where I think he does start to understand, and he gets into like a cold sweat, which is it's like a fascinating story. Hopefully it's in the doc somewhere. Oh fuck it, I'm in the organized side now. I guess I'm not actually organizing these properly. I'd have to check my my actual doc, but I don't think I've got time to look through this properly. What was the second source I've got on here? Oh, liner notes. Okay, where's liner notes? I could move that at least now. Where's liner notes? Oh, there it is. Oh, maybe I should just take it's probably connected to the Lupin stuff. Oh. Oh, did it do it? You want to work? There we go. I think liner notes might be number 2, or the second source there. This is about him basically, as soon as he went independent, apparently he had 5 projects on the go, and they all were basically cancelled. So first that, I think they all lost, and then Angel's Egg happened. So he basically, 5 projects fell through before Angel's Egg happened. And I'm assuming Lupin might have been one of them, but maybe that happened earlier. It's hard to say. He doesn't really specify. Yeah, I mean, thinking that he probably had to pay alimony and stuff to his ex-wife, I feel like it was quite bold, but he also, I guess, had royalties off Beautiful Dreamer, which were probably doing pretty well, among other little bits. So he did have some other royalties to his credit, which I think is what he said he stayed on for the next 3 years. He was basically living off royalties. But I don't imagine that was very much. Not enough to survive in the situation he was in, I don't think. Very well. He does like dogs. Anyway, let's have a look. Where was I? So, I'm just having a quick look for my script here to see if there's actually any, because I was going to try and organize these, but easier said than done, I suppose. Okay, if I can find the Ehoba Lupin, I think we've already talked about that. Do I have it here? Yeah, this one. Oh, maybe I need the Amano biography as well. Grab them both, maybe. I'm going to move those up. It'll probably be in this order. Amano biography might be afterwards, but it's somewhere around there. Lupin cancelled. So this is about the Lupin project. So we could go into here and have a look. This book has a whole scene on it. Let me just double check if the screen... Oh, okay, that might be... I might have to move the chat for a moment then. Let's move the chat over here, shall we? Let's have a little read then. Okay, so there are several Mamoru Oshii books on this list on the internet, but they do not provide detailed descriptions of the content. My collection of books... Yes, that's Ehoba's collection, though. Right, so this is from the Lupin Files, Japanese book, 25th anniversary, complete history, released in 1996. This probably has an interview with Oshii, I'm assuming. So the contents, here's the Oshii interview. There's an extra issue in Kinema Jumpo magazine featuring Lupin III. It includes so many interesting interviews, but I focus on the interview in here. I wonder if I can find that Kinema Jumbo feature on Lupin III. I'm assuming it's about this one, but it might be different though. Oshii talks about the details of his Lupin III project. In the interview, Lupin was supposed to steal a fiction in the hidden Oshii version. Oshii has often talked about it in other media, but this book explains it in the most detail. In 1984, oh, okay, so this is in 84. Okay, so I guess it was around that time period that this final version happened then. So it must have been one of the cancelled projects. Miyazaki was asked to direct a new Lupin film, but he did not want to, therefore he introduced Oshii to the producers. Oshii and Miyazaki had a common thought. Why don't we have a good idea about Lupin's new target? We don't have a good idea for Lupin's new target. Miyazaki and Oshii both thought that Lupin was already outdated. Oshii believes that Miyazaki may have put in these feelings in Castle of Cagliostro. Oshii's conclusion was Lupin should steal the atomic bomb. He tried to refine the identity of Lupin. Oshii had also this idea about the target being the angel fossil. Nazi Germany had obtained an angel fossil in Africa, but had passed through Israel to Japan, which would be a fucking wacky one. All right. However, it turns out that the whole story of the angel fossil was a lie. The angel fossil was just a made-up story to hide plutonium. Lupin mistakenly activates the atomic bomb, but when you find out the bomb is fake, and at the end the audience realizes Lupin himself is also fake. In the end, the man called Lupin III never existed in the beginning. So there you go. The story takes place in a gaudy, I think it's supposed to be gaudy, style Tower of Babel basically, what was built in Tokyo by a mysterious architect who committed suicide when the tower was completed. I think that's similar to the story in Patlabor 1. Lupin's gang climbed the tower in the third act, and the idea is reused in the Patlabor the movie. The idea and the idea of destroying Tokyo was reused in Path Labor 2. Lupin never existed. Oshii believes that the ending would satisfy Miyazaki's intentions, and in fact Miyazaki seemed to like Oshii's idea. However, the producers at Yomiuri TV and Toho strongly opposed the idea. Oshii was removed from the project, and Oshii and Miyazaki held a consultation meeting at Miyazaki's studio. The idea of the angel's egg was reused in the idea of the angel fossil was reused in Angel's Egg. As some may already know, the same idea was reused in Seraphim. There we go. I mean, I think they're not necessary to, well, when they say outdated, I think they just think the concept of Lupin is very much one that was built in the 70s. And I mean, I think I can understand what they're saying, because, you know, Lupin doesn't necessarily evolve in a crazy direction. I don't think it really needs to, but I guess it depends what you want out of the series, right? I think that Lupin has stayed in a very, I don't know if we could say there's been much evolution in the series. I think it's very tried and true, which I guess is maybe what fans appreciate about it. But I can understand what they're coming from. Not doing... I can't read that word on my screen, unfortunately. What kind of perspective are you saying, Lupin? Not doing... Euclidean perspective? So yeah, I'm reading it off my fucking OBS, which... I was trying to make the text bigger last time, earlier, but apparently it just broke, so I'm not sure. I think the thing with Dallas, if it had become a television series, the answer is no. It would have absolutely not been successful. I don't think as a television series it would have been particularly. I don't think it would have done well. I just don't see it. I think, ironically, as a video, it probably would have done better, just because there was just no chance of it becoming a TV show. I think even outside that the slot was not rejected in the end. I don't think it. I mean, I guess it's not out yet. But my Dallas video, I think one of the main reasons they said that they didn't want to do it is that it lacked toy potential. They basically said, like, we don't see the toy potential in this, so we don't want to fund it, and we also don't really get the vibe. So even if it wouldn't have made it to television, basically. I don't know if they've actually done the atomic bomb thing in any of the real films. I don't think so. It's an interesting concept. It's very Indiana Jones, I guess. I very much doubt there is a copy of Lupin Files out there, but I haven't looked myself, so you're welcome to check. But again, it's one of those books that has not been translated in English, so you'd be looking for the Japanese version. I mean, I think it's just kind of... Look, the blunt of it, to me, is that a lot of people who make anime live in Tokyo, and they kind of have like a very Tokyo-centric like idea. And I've talked to people before who've mentioned... I swear it's been mentioned in some books before. Or like there are different people who've talked about this, you know, when it comes to like apocalypticism in Japan media, that like there's a lot of people whose first response, and maybe it's not a very good response, and I think they say it's not a very good, but a lot of people are like, wow, this terrible thing happened in Japan, imagine if it happened in Tokyo, then it'd be really scary. It's like fucking, the people are like so Tokyo centric, where like I think where a lot of that media comes from is that idea. It's like, yeah, there's like natural disasters or earthquakes or events like the atomic bomb. Imagine if it happened in Japan, in the part of Japan we live in, not that other bit we don't care about. It's like, that's a very Tokyo centric like philosophy, I suppose. But I mean, you see it in America too, with like, you know, especially during the period where like, you know, blowing up New York was in vogue, but I guess it became a little less in vogue after 9/11. But you know, it still kind of happens, I suppose, or some anagram of New York. I guess I don't know if it even slowed it down, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, if they fight, I mean, Tokyo is obviously a big landmark, but it's a good backdrop. A lot of things to blow up. Anyway, what was I? Okay, so this one's been. I probably need to go in a sec. Actually, I don't know if I'll be able to go this one for too long. I'm afraid. But yeah, that was the Lupin story. I don't know where the other version of the Angels the comes into it. If there's any relation to it, don't know. Maybe it's coincidence. Not sure. I'd have to find the episode first, I suppose. But yeah, I know there's definitely some Follosos and Urusei Yatsura too. I don't know if it was an angel though. I think it was more ancient stuff. Anyway, we did Persona. That one was pretty interesting. Fight to Win. I have a book on Suzuki and Oshii interviews from over the years. I didn't find anything. I don't believe I found anything that was worth putting in this video though. In it. That's a Japanese exclusive. It was kind of an expensive book too. I'm a bit pissed about that. I was like, I've got this fucking book. Maybe there'll be some stuff in. I think there might be some stuff about innocence in there. It might be useful later though. It's basically a collection of Suzuki and Oshii interviews from over the years, from like the 80s to the modern day, basically. Came out last year, I think, in Japan. Don't think it would ever get translated though. What's this one? I think this is also about Lupin, isn't it? So maybe I'll move that up a bit. I might have to get rid of the Suzuki Oshii book until I find an actual. I might just delete it from here until I find something that's worth putting in it. If I do. Yes. So the project's producers decided that the story was too complicated. This is similar to what they said in the other thing, but this is in English. So this is from the Stray Dogs. This would have been Brian's interview with Oshii via email, I think. I think that's where this is from. 21. It might be. I think this was just an email interview that Brian did. Brian Ra, isn't it? Ra? Yeah. From the Stray Dog anime book. So the project producer decided the story was too complicated and the idea was not suitable for Lupin. So it's basically similar to what it said in the other book. Oh. God, my ears went funny. Are we good? 1, 2, 3. I don't know. I thought something went wrong there, but I think my brain just fucking exploded. Oh my god. Yeah, I don't know what the sources are on the more in-depth stuff about the cancelled project. Okay. Let's have a look. What else we got here? So, I think these might be in order a little bit or close enough to it. Now, this one here, I think this is another Ehoba tweet from a different source. Yeah, what is this? This is Animage. What Animage is that? Oh god, I can't tell. This is probably 84. Might be the winter of 84. Right. So in this era, Toshio Suzuki was trying to make Mamoru Oshii the next Hayao Miyazaki. I think I've said this before, but yeah, it's fairly obvious. Suzuki even prepared a talk session between. I've actually read that one. That's from 82. There's a translation on the Rumiko Takahashi website, fan website, of this one, just from 1982. We used this source for the Urusei Yatsura video. It's quite an extensive interview. The biggest problem as an anime director was the fact that he was never a profitable director. Yeah, I think Urusei Yatsura was profitable, but maybe Oshii's projects were not in the same way. I feel like Oshii became popular through... Yeah, Pat Label was pretty particularly popular, but again, it wasn't actually his concept. He sort of came in secondary, and Gitz was kind of thrown at him. And yeah, I think the main source here was mainly the next Hayao Miyazaki thing, that Suzuki definitely was... He's been interested in this idea for a long time. Very interested in it, right? I mean, it's failed every time, but he's still trying it. Just every time it's like a new director, right? It's like, maybe this one will work. He's got some dedication to it. I'll give him that. I don't know. Who's next? It's Goro right now, isn't it? Yeah, I don't know if that's going to work, but I think Goro doesn't want to be, so I take that she will. Oh, the new Shogun TV. I haven't seen the new Shogun television show. It's on Disney Plus, I think. Yeah, I mean, it's been the case. Like, earthquakes are plenty, right? And earthquakes mean tsunamis, so. I mean, I think Godzilla just likes to think that every part of Japan is a walkable city, so he just walks right through. But, you know, sometimes he blows up Tokyo. Not Tokyo, like China, or some other place. Depends on the movie, I suppose. Anyway, let's get rid of that one. And that one. Where were we? Yeah, and then there was another... I found this quote, yeah, from this book. This is from... Yeah, I think that was from Wikipedia, but like this book is from his exclusive blog. For a time, Oshii had this blog that he kept online. I think it was called Pissing Off Half the World or something like this. And I'm pretty sure this quote is from there, where I believe he was talking about the past. He's talking about 1982, and he's basically talking about in response to this thing that Suzuki was trying to big him up as a Miyazaki follow-on, right? And he basically was saying like, yeah, I have no intention of being a Miyazaki. I'm not interested in being that kind of creator, which is pretty apparent by the kind of works they make. It's a very different sides of the spectrum. Now, the next one here. This is from Out Magazine 1985, August. I think there's another Ehoba tweet where he was doing his Oshii series through different books. Now, yeah, some bits in there about symbolism, which yeah, I'm not really interested in too much, to be honest. But yeah, so this is interesting because I don't think we have a full copy of this magazine on the internet, but it's good to have a little bit there. Basically, Ehoba says that Amano said that Oshii says he featured Yoshitaka, I think my throat's going, Yoshitaka Amano as a total art director like H.I. Giga in Alien. He got the idea when he saw Amano's image board in Dallas. Now, I don't think he's credited for any image boards in Dallas, but he did do some, he did the illustrations for the videotapes, which maybe his image boards became the VHS covers? I'm not really sure of the actual history on that one too much myself. I think it's interesting nonetheless, but yeah, I think he was, you know, in that interview together, so there's an Oshii and Amano interview from 85, I think that's an Anime Age, where I believe Oshii says something like, I've been looking for an excuse to work with Amano properly for like years, because obviously they were at the same company, and he always wanted to do something with him, but they never had the chance when they were both at Tatsunoko. I mean, Oshii and Miyazaki had sex. Wow, I'm kidding and I'm not kidding. It's somewhere in my research document, actually. I have a full translation of the little interview. They slept in the same bed, almost in a romantic suite in London once upon a time. There's a funny story around that one, which is interesting. But yeah, it's a funny one in terms of their relationship, because I believe like in the early 2000s, Oshii said something like he was never friends with Miyazaki, which is obviously completely untrue. It's completely unfucking untrue. There's absolutely no way that's true. Oh, that's my alarm going off. That probably means I should end the stream, I'm afraid, because I need to... Well, we're already out of camera batch. Well. Oh, yeah. So I actually found out this. I've got the full translation. So, yeah, Oshii was definitely milked. That was not actually... I thought it was Toshio Suzuki who did it, but no, it's the other producer at Ghibli. One of the other producers grabbed Oshii because of his voluptuous figure at the time, apparently. And he was groping him on the floor during the same time, because apparently there were 4 people in this room, and only 2 of them got in the bed. So you had Oshii and Miyazaki sleeping in the bed, and I'm assuming the other 2 were just on the floor. But the other 2 were the producers. So you had Suzuki, and one of the other Ghibli associated producers was there. But yeah, it's easy to assume that, I don't know, maybe something happened, I don't know. I think it's funny to think it. But there's this quote where Oshii says, "We were never friends." So my assumption, and I probably will make this point in the video, I'm kind of joking, but it's also funny to me. You know, if you want the Fujoshi should be going crazy about this. It's too bad they don't know about it. But it's just like he goes, "Yeah, we were never friends." It's like, okay, Oshii, what were you? Lovers? Like, come the fuck on. You got him recommending staff. Like, this is something we'll get into later, but like half the animators in Angel's Egg are just Ghibli staff, and it's because that they were like borrowing between them. But some of them came on the recommendation of Miyazaki. Miyazaki, like, I mean, some of that I guess was fought for, but like they were like salary workers at Ghibli who were just working on the project. You know, you've got Kitaro Kosaka, you've got oh fuck, I actually have the document up. When I be on my phone, I can actually probably get up all the names before I go. Right. So you've got Nakamura. The animation director was Nakura, and he was basically freelance. Most of them were freelance technically, I suppose. And so from Ghibli, you've got Kitaro Kosaka, you've got Futaki, Makiko Futaki, who did probably like 50, 60 cuts. Kitaro Kosaka did about 20, alleged. And then Masaki Endo, also another Ghibli associated creator. Shinji Otsuka, again, pretty well associated with Ghibli at this point. It's about 70 cuts. Toshio Kawaguchi, I think he's Telecom associated. I think he's Telecom. But he also worked on Castle in the Sky, so he'd have been at Ghibli Studios at the time. And then you've got Toyoaki Imura as well, who I think is also TMS associated, but probably, and also worked on Castle in the Sky. And then you also have the colorist. I guess also Arno, depending if Miyazaki sent Arno or not, but it's hard to say. Sadamoto ends up on it. Obviously not Ghibli associated, but Yoshiyuki Sadamoto ended up on the film, apparently because he's a big fan of Amano. I thought maybe Arno gave him the heads up, but no, he apparently just really liked Amano's work and wanted to work with him. So yeah, that's the that's like there's like 12 credited animators on Angel's Egg basically, and that's like half of them. The real reason, I guess, I don't know if they necessarily broke up, but they kind of, I guess there was a snap, is probably to do with Anchor. You know, and like that they were making Anchor together, and then there was an argument, and Oshii kind of just like was like, fuck this. And that was around the 12-year-old girl quote, you know, the classic, what's so wrong about being in love with a 12-year-old girl as I cry and drink Miyazaki quote. And I think at that point, around that, I don't know if that was the exact time that ended it, but after several other arguments with both Suzuki and Miyazaki, I think he was just like, this is generally around the time they were sleeping in the same bed as well. I think he was just like, fuck this. Fuck this. He got a nice trip to an island out of it, you know. I think he saw this movie was never going to happen and was just like, I'm out. I'd rather be unemployed. I'd rather be fucking unemployed. And I think from there, I don't know if it's necessarily distance, but they just weren't working together as close. I think Suzuki gave up on him being the next Miyazaki. So his sights were probably maybe on Arno or someone else at that time, or one of the other creators that they were originally going to get Kiki Delivery Service to be the director. The guy who directed Arate and I forget his name now. Katabuchi, is it? I think it might be Katabuchi. I think they just moved targets, and I don't know if it was ever necessarily sour, but maybe it's sour. I think there's just too many arguments there, but they were definitely a lot less close after their working relationship between the two studios. Well, between him and whatever studio he was working at the time sort of wasn't really there anymore. Though you do see them coming back with Innocence. Though Innocence sounds like it was kind of thrown at Oshii because he didn't want to work with Suzuki, because he likes to talk to Suzuki, he likes to shit talk with Suzuki, but he doesn't like working with Suzuki because they just argue a lot, and he kind of seems to say of himself that he doesn't. I think this kind of comes from his philosophy where like Oshii's the kind of guy who says, I have no friends. He's like, I don't consider anyone really my friend. And like Suzuki's like the one guy. It's like I have nice conversation with occasionally. I don't know if that's friendly, maybe friendly, maybe, I don't know. But like he knows he's a skis, but he kind of likes that about him, I think. But he doesn't seem to consider people his friends. He's very solitude like that. So I think that there's like maybe a natural difference in there. I don't know if there was ever anything after. Maybe Anchor was the point. Maybe they just grew further apart. I mean, it sounds like a lot of the time they just argue. I mean, there's that conversation from 2004 when he happened to be in the studio again, and he has that one conversation with Miyazaki, and then they just start fucking arguing, and they start fucking spewing at each other instantly, since they're in proximity. Yeah, I think Miyazaki got jealous when the other producer at Ghibli was milking Oshii instead of him. I mean, the real result of the two of them broke out. You mean got popular? Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's funnier to think that they had sex and then they broke up after the like after Anchor. You know, they had their lovers quarrel, and then from there it was more of a mild relationship. I mean, there is one of his quotes, I swear, where I think it's from the 2019 interview where Oshii says, "At that time, I had a good relationship with Ghibli, which is why he could get so many animators off them." Which I think implies at some point he didn't anymore. Maybe it's after he wrote that book where he just shit talked Ghibli for like an entire 200, 300 pages, which came out in like 95. So maybe that was the bridge that burnt. Bridge might have burnt. I don't know. I don't know if Miyazaki cares too much about what people write in books, though. It's hard to say. Um, but yeah, I guess it's time. I might have to end it there, I guess. Miyazaki recommended. Yeah, so, oh, okay. Yeah, here's the recommendation. I should double check this one. So yeah, Miyazaki recommended, I'm pretty sure Kitaro Kosaka, and maybe a couple others. Obviously, I think them lending the color director is also really important. Laputa and Angel's Egg borrowed and fought over staff members, so some of the Ghibli staff worked on it. Yeah, about half of them. Kitaro Kosaka joined because Miyazaki recommended it. This article includes a talk session between Yes. I think this is another Animage. I've got this somewhere. I think this is from the, maybe it's this August? Might be August or November Animage? 1985? Yeah, they talk. Yeah, Yas and him talk about different projects, and or they get into a bit of a conversation about tourism. Apparently, I think Yas doesn't seem to be too impressed with Angel Circle. He seems very. I think he sees it as like an indie work, like as an independent animation opposed to like a commercial work. I think that's part of the conversation. But yeah, obviously, they went out of their way to give him some help on that one. I have a reasonable assumption. My reasonable assumption is probably that the people who ended up finishing the movie were probably more Ghibli associated because they would likely be able to take the brunt force of it more. But it depends if they were forced to do, since they were doing Castle at the same time. It's hard to say. Maybe they were the ones that ran away, but I don't know. I mean, some of them that they got on here are like really, like kind of like some of the best animators in the industry. So I'd assume they're not the ones running away. Futaku and Otsuka, both of those are like, they're fucking the goats. So I don't imagine, and like I feel like they would have probably been okay. Though I think Otsuka's work seems kind of off model. It does seem fairly off model, but the model is not very easy to keep to, so I don't really even blame them on that one. Yeah, I don't think he really takes it too seriously. Okay. Um, where were we? I might have to end it there and get some food. I've said that 7 times now. I should probably do it though. I've already out of camera batteries after all. Where were we in here for a second? Let me note it down. Yeah, so 400 cuts. So yeah, this was Animage. Oh, okay, it says here. So these are both Animage 85, sorry. So that's the recommendation article in there, and then also you have the part. I think the talk with Yas, they mentioned that they had 400 cuts in Angel's Egg. That is a very, very small amount of cuts. I will have to say that, like, that is the smallest amount of cuts I've ever seen an Oshii production have, in terms of like one of these, I guess, one of the movie ones. Because I did have an article from the last video where someone had like broke down the amount of cuts in each of Oshii's films and then Miyazaki's films, and they were trying to do something with that. But the lowest before that point, I think, was Beautiful Dreamer, and that was like 600 and something. And that's the difference in length between those. I think Beautiful Dreamer is like 80 minutes, and Angel Takes like 70. So like Angel Take has like a very, very low density of cuts, and I probably it's the kind of film that needs to just exist. That also creates difficult animation jobs where it's probably where you've got people running away because the cuts are just so fucking long that like it's a lot of work just to get one done. But yeah, 400 cuts it's not a lot for 70 minutes. But a lot of those cuts in Angel Egg are very long, so doesn't surprise me. It's that the Taranowski in it. All right, well, my throat's dying anyway. All right, everyone. Thank you for showing up. There's a possibility I might do a quick stream tomorrow on the main channel. I don't plan to do too many streams on the main channel more. But usually it's just to like big up the second channel, because I need to get it monetized. I need a couple more subscribers. Need like another couple hundred subscribers, and I need to get some more viewership on. Basically, I need to get this second channel monetized at some point. So I need a couple more subs. I need to keep releasing regular streams, but I need to make sure people on the main channel know that I'm doing it. So I might do another quick preview stream before a video comes out, just to tell people. I don't think it's viable to do a whole animation cut in one cut, though. I guess unless you're like Richard Williams. I mean, he has that like, what is it, like 10-minute short he did before he died with like the fight, like the Spartan like fight thing going on. It's like I think it's like a Roman fight or something like that. And I think that is like that kind of feels like a continuous cut, but it's more like stitched together by the camera movement. Or fake camera, I'd say. The issue is at some point, if the information is like, if you have to storyboard a sequence out, having one cut means you have like one sequence in the storyboard, which can't have many frames, because usually a cut doesn't. Usually, if it relates to like a small portion of movement, because it's all in the same frame. So I think it would be very difficult. The prologue short, maybe it's that. Anyway, so if you're in the chat, subscribe to this channel so I can get it up. Maybe set a reminder. I mean, I tend to, because of the second channel factor, I tend to put down the stream about a day or so beforehand when I know I'm going to do one. I might do it maybe a day or two beforehand just to give people a better idea, because I don't have a set schedule on them yet for this channel, that is. But I might do another research stream, or maybe I'll do a react. I did have an idea of doing this react video. I saw this video ages ago, but it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and it got a lot of views. And I think I've got some notes on it somewhere. But I remember seeing it come back on the sidebar of YouTube, and I was like, oh, okay, I think at one point I was like, oh, maybe I'll do a reaction. So maybe I will bring that one back. But it might not be now, because it will probably take a bit of background research, because I need to have a document ready if I really want to talk about it properly. It's not that long of a video, but they have a lot of claims and sources, and some of them I think are a little bit like, I don't know if I trust them on there. Some other stuff I'm a bit like, I feel like to do a better breakdown would involve actually spending some time. And right now, I would rather focus on my schedule, because I have some deadlines coming up. So maybe we'll do another research stream. Maybe we'll do another. Maybe I'll do another like Fred stream and like go through another one of them from Twitter I have. Maybe I'll do Redline or something, just to capture that, because those are always interesting to go through in retrospect. That Redline one's pretty popular. That might be an interesting one to do. I'll have a think about it. I'll see what happens, but yeah, we might do another research stream, because I haven't even broke down. There's about 40 sources in this document that I've been going through, and we've barely even cut through the first couple of them. But there's like a lot of them here. They're interesting to talk about. So I've already saying for 15 minutes I was going to end it, so I think it's about time we do it. The difficulty with having few cuts usually is about how you portray those in a storyboard, because usually for something to cut, it usually is like, all right, well, the background and the sequence and the sort of frame, like the position of the camera, of the fake camera, right, or the composition, it all changes. So like when everything's still in that perspective of like the same background, the same sort of angle, and the same motions, like that's a cut. But yeah, it would probably become a bit obtuse. But I don't know if you wanted to do that. I guess it would be like the same as doing like a continuous shot in a film. That may be difficult in some other ways, because the background, you have to create the background. Like you don't get to just have the background just exist in the real. But I guess you have to create a set in the movie as well. Anyway, I'll stop now before I go on forever. That guidebook is on the archive. Oh God, I'm telling it. In the stream here, this one here. Can you see that? Yeah. The guidebook is on anime on the archive.web or org whatever. That's the Angel Tag guidebook. Anyway,